Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. American Comics. Level 5 Mutants start with Gojo Satoru. Chapter 1. In the blink of an eye, the scenery in front of you changed drastically. The surrounding environment changed from a gorgeous hotel to a dim prison, and the things around him also changed from a few delicate bodies to filthy bodies emitting stench. Just when Sumu was wondering what happened. Bang! The sound of metal sticks hitting metal sounded, startling Sumu, and his body trembled instinctively. This body was extremely afraid of this sound and had developed a conditioned reflex. After a while, several tall black men walked in from the light and handed some turbid viscous liquid into each metal prison. When it was Suemu's turn to enter the prison, a black man said, "Hey, boss, this yellow-skinned monkey is still alive. It's like Xiao Chang." Among them, the bald boss with ferocious tattoos all over his body glanced at Sumu indifferently, and then warned his younger brother. "Don't touch him during this period. The transaction time is coming soon, and the dead organs will no longer be fresh, and the price will be greatly reduced." Yes, I know." In response to the boss's order, the little nigger quickly nodded and bowed to show his understanding. Then he glanced at Sumu ferociously, subconsciously touched the wound on his palm, and gritted his teeth and said, "Kid, you are lucky. Organ trade." After a few people left, Sumu immediately understood something from their words. After that, he felt an abnormal tingling in his brain, and a large number of broken memory fragments poured into his mind. The original owner, also named Sumu, was an ordinary college student who suddenly awakened his mutant power a month ago and used his mutant power to escape intact from the house that broke out in the fire. Although he survived the catastrophe, he had no luck. A few days later, his parents discovered his mutant ability, and they were disgusted and kicked out of the house. Later, he was hunted by a mysterious organization, and was accidentally abducted by gang members in Hell's Kitchen and trapped in an unknown underground prison. The black man was his captor. When he resisted, he almost bit off a piece of meat from the black man's hand with his teeth. Because of this reason, he was later taken care of by niggas. Looking at the scarred skin under the clothes, it was already pus-filled and still bleeding slightly. It must have been because of this that the original owner died. However, this is not the most serious crisis at present. In a week, the gang will trade with other underground organizations, and their batch of supply will also be slaughtered like livestock and their organs will be taken out. Moreover, this world is a world he is familiar with, mutants and Stark Industries. Isn't this the extremely dangerous Marvel world? Even if you escape the next crisis, how can you avoid the snap that threatens the entire universe? Sumu didn't want to bet on a one-half chance. And, is this a movie world or a comic book world? If it is a movie world, there is still a possibility of struggle. If it is a comic book world, Sumu shivered subconsciously. As for the original owner's superpowers, if you have powerful superpowers, you won't be kidnapped by underground gangs. His ability is energy absorption. Yes, it is exactly the same as the Black Emperor's ability. However, after the initial emotional excitement and awakening, the strength of the ability dropped significantly. Even the kinetic energy of his fists cannot be fully absorbed, let alone bullets or even bullets. Mutant abilities. What can such a weak ability do? Sumu suddenly became desperate. She didn't expect that he would die just after traveling through time. He obviously lived a good life in his previous life, so why did he suddenly travel across time? In a strong reluctance, a voice sounded from Suemu's ear. "Congratulations, you have awakened the character template system of all realms. You have obtained the character template, Gojo Satoru. You have awakened the skill, 6 Eyes, LV1. Name, Sumu. Holding template, Gojo Satoru. Energy absorption LV1, 78/100ths. It can absorb most of the energy, and the absorption speed and energy storage limit are low. 6 Eyes LV1, 1/100th. It has a 360-degree long-distance viewing angle, can see the flow of energy, and has amazing dynamic vision, allowing the holder to perform fine energy operations. Template fusion degree, 1. Improve character integration to unlock new skills. Energy points, 0. When the template fusion reaches 100%, you will get a new character template. Sumu immediately felt the difference. He could see a 360-degree view of the surroundings, and his eyesight was obviously extraordinary. Even the dust in the air could be seen clearly. And there are some blue lines intertwining in his sight, and the end of the nearby lines is the dim wall lamp behind him. It was obvious that what he saw was the current, which was also the effect of energy that the six eyes could see. After experiencing the ability, Sumu looked happy because the first character template he obtained turned out to be Gojo Satoru. Although after becoming 2.5 Satoru, the evaluation of Gojo Satoru has dropped slightly, but it still does not prevent him from being one of the ceilings in the world of magic return. If he acquires Gojo Satoru's ability, even part of it, he can easily escape from prison. The most important thing is that Gojo Satoru is so cool. After obtaining the system, Sumu immediately gained confidence in his future, but the most important thing now was to escape from the gang prison. Just then, he heard heavy footsteps and saw the nigger walking over. He vaguely remembered that the nigger's name was Jim. Jim came to the prison where Sumu was imprisoned, smiled ferociously at Sumu, and whispered, "Yellow-skinned monkey, I didn't expect you to be very strong in life, so I will let you live one more day. I will entertain you well tomorrow." After saying that, he unbuttoned his pants and poured the smelly yellow liquid on the bowl on the ground. Looking at Suemu's indifferent expression, as if looking at a dead person, he suddenly felt extremely annoyed, and the injury on his palm also ached slightly. But thinking about what the boss said, he still held back. He didn't dare to disobey the boss's order, so he could only put down a harsh word and left. Sumu quietly looked at Jim's back for a moment, and then withdrew. Looking at the yellow liquid and turbid gruel scattered on the ground in front of him, although the yellow liquid was still some distance away from him and did not splash on him, he still retreated back and decided to do the same tomorrow. Treat this nigger. Although he was hungry at this time, Sumu would never drink the unknown gruel stained with yellow liquid. He began to study his newly acquired abilities. Changing his position, he used his body to block the dim wall lamp behind him, and under the cover of his coughing, he secretly used force to break the glass covering it. Sumu hid the glass in his sleeves, and then used his fingers to make contact with the wick. Success or failure depended on this. After obtaining the six eyes, he felt that he could control energy more precisely, and his ability to absorb energy also experienced some changes. When the finger comes into contact with the wick, under the precise energy control of the six eyes, electricity and heat are absorbed by it, while at the same time the energy points slowly increase. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Energy absorption experience +1. As time passed slowly, Sumu used his body to block the wick behind him, continuously absorbing energy, and put the obtained energy into the Gojo Satoru character panel. After waiting for a few hours, new changes occurred in the system. Template Fusion Degree, 5%. You have unlocked a new skill, No Lower Limit Technique. Congratulations, your skill, Energy Absorption, has been upgraded. No Lower Limit Technique LV1 1/100th interfere with atomic level matter, dominate space. The closer the object is to the user, the slower and slower it will be, and will never be able to touch the user. Energy Absorption LV2 1/300th. It can absorb most of the energy, and the absorption speed is the same as the upper limit of energy storage. When the fusion degree reached 5%, the energy absorption was also promoted to level 2, and Sumu immediately felt the changes in his body. First, the energy is absorbed faster, the body can store more energy, and there is an additional technique engraved deep in the soul. No lower limit for spells. Sumu immediately understood how to use the unlimited technique, but because the fusion degree was too low at this time, he tried briefly and found that he could only maintain it for 5 minutes and could not maintain it for a long time. It is even more different from Gojo Satoru as a passive resident. However, his purpose was just to escape from prison, and at this time, his strength made it possible to succeed. There were still a few hours before dawn. To be on the safe side, he was still prepared to continue absorbing energy, increase the level of fusion, and awaken new abilities. This is the only way to be foolproof. At this moment, a strange man's voice came from the side. Sumu turned around and saw a middle-aged man whispering to him. "Hey, boy over there, you are a mutant." Seeing him looking behind him, he found that due to the effect of energy absorption, the current was actually absorbed by his fingers, and the contact part between the two shone with a subtle light. Although it is dim, it is still very obvious as long as you pay attention. Seeing that Su Mu was silent, the man immediately said arrogantly, "You disgusting mutant fool, there must be a way to leave, right?" "That's right. After all, you fools have all kinds of abilities, so it's not surprising that you have the power to leave. Boy, listen up, when you are ready to escape, take me with you, otherwise I will tell those gangsters about your identity as a mutant. I think they will be very interested in mutants." Quote. Seeing that Su Mu still remained silent, the middle-aged man was slightly impatient, but in order to escape, he still whispered to Su Mu. "Mutant idiot, do you hear that?" Hearing the threat from the man in the cage next to him, Su Mu remained unmoved. Instead, the corners of his mouth revealed a subtle arc. Because of government propaganda, ordinary people are generally hostile to mutants and believe that mutants are dirty fools. But they forget that mutants have powers that can easily tear them apart. Su Mu raised his head, lifted up his white hair with his hands, revealing his delicate blue eyes, and smiled brightly. "Sir, don't worry, I'll let you out right away." The middle-aged man smiled with satisfaction and said, "You know what's going on." Su Mu stopped absorbing electricity and walked towards the middle-aged man. Then he stretched out his hand on the iron fence and said to the middle-aged man, "Sir, please reach out your hand. My ability is space jumping. I will take you out of here right away." The middle-aged man immediately showed joy. Sure enough, this mutant was just a child, and he would obey at the slightest threat. He had decided to call the police and catch this mutant fool immediately after he escaped. After all, he could get a lot of bonuses for reporting mutants, which would be enough for him to live happily for a while. And he didn't dare to report the gangsters who caught him. They were all criminals who killed without blinking an eye. How dare he provoke them before they could escape? As for Su Mu wanting to do harm to him, how could this be possible? If his mutant powers were really offensive, how could he be caught by ordinary gangsters? Thinking about it, it must be an ability that requires a long rest after using it once, which poses no threat to him at all. If Su Mu had not traveled through time, then the man in front of him was right. But at this time, Su Mu had awakened the system, which was completely different from before. When the palms of the two came into contact, an electric current invisible to the naked eye was immediately injected into the middle-aged man's body, and he was immediately unable to move due to the powerful stimulating current. Level 2 energy absorption can already reach this level, but Su Mu's purpose is not to electrocute the man. People who often electrocute people should know that the electric current will produce a pungent burnt smell, which can be easily detected by others. So Su Mu stretched out his hand, used the energy stored in his body to strengthen his body, and then used his other hand to grab the middle-aged man's neck and twist it hard. With a slight sound of bone cracking, the man's neck twisted and he died immediately. It was already late at night, and the slight sound did not attract anyone's attention. Even if they heard this sound, they thought it was the sound caused by someone moving their bones. Putting the man in a sleeping position, Su Mu sat back in front of the lamp and continued to absorb energy. Everything was as normal, as if nothing had happened just now. The system prompts still continue. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Energy absorption experience +1. After an unknown amount of time, through the window on the side, Su Mu saw that the sky had brightened slightly. At the same time, Su Mu, who continued to absorb energy and put energy points into the template, heard the prompt from the system. Template fusion degree, 10%. You have unlocked a new skill. Spell reversal, Kang. Spell forward, Kang, LV1 1/100th. Create a strong suction force with Kang as the center. The maximum output can reach negative infinity, similar to a small black hole. Su Mu's eyes lit up, and various ways to use the spell forward, Kang, emerged in his mind. At this time, his system panel is Name, Su Mu. Holding template, Gojo Satoru. Energy absorption LV2 67/300ths can absorb most of the energy. The absorption speed is similar to the upper limit of energy storage. 6 eyes LV1 1/100th with a 360-degree long distance perspective. can see the flow of energy, amazing dynamic vision, can allow the holder to perform delicate energy operations. Unlimited spell level 1/100th interfere with atomic level matter, dominate space. The closer the object is to the user, the slower it will be, and it will never touch the user. Spell forward, Kang, level 1/100th create a strong suction force with Kang as the center. The maximum output can reach negative infinity, similar to a small black hole. Template fusion degree, 10%. Increase character fusion to unlock new skills. Energy points, 12. When the template fusion degree reaches 100%, you will get a new character template. After the energy absorption was upgraded to level 2, Sumu felt that the energy in his body had been greatly improved, and with the improvement of experience, the limit of energy storage in his body was improved again. He can use the unlimited spell for at least 10 minutes without interruption, and can use the spell forward, Kang, several times. Sensing his strength at this time, Sumu is no longer in a hurry to escape. He wants to give the gangsters here some surprises and repay the black man named Jim. At this moment, the door of the prison room rang again, and several familiar gangsters walked into the prison with ferocious expressions on their faces. Today is the day when the gangsters are making deals. They took out the keys to the prisons, opened all the prisons one by one, and pulled all the people in the cages out and escorted them to the outside world. Everyone understood what was going to happen next, and they all became desperate. Some of them wailed in pain, some knelt down and begged for mercy, and some threatened. However, in the face of all the situations, the gangsters did not react at all. As long as they cooperated, they would not be moved. If they did not cooperate, they would be beaten with electric batons. Soon the gangsters came to the prison where Sumu was, and the black man was among them. Seeing Sumu looking at him, the black man smiled at him fiercely and made a provocative gesture of cutting his throat. But he did not see Suemu's fearful expression, but instead gave him a sunny smile, which made him very unhappy. "Yellow monkey, get out of here, today is your good day." Sumu also said calmly. "Yes, today is indeed a good day." Seeing that Sumu dared to talk back, the black man Jim immediately showed a gloomy look on his face, came to Sumu, and whispered to him. "You may not know, I have told Dr. John that your visceral removal surgery will not use anesthetics, you will die in pain and despair." Sumu smiled mysteriously at him. "Maybe you don't have the opportunity to see this scene." Being provoked again, although he didn't know where the yellow monkey in front of him got the courage to dare to provoke him, he was ready to give him a taste of color. Although he might be punished by the boss, as long as he didn't die, the punishment would not be too severe. Then he immediately twisted his fist and attacked Suemu's cheek fiercely. He had been unhappy with this handsome face for a long time, especially the calm expression pretended on this face at this time, which made him even more unhappy. Seeing this scene, the gang members behind Jim did not stop it. They looked at the scene in front of them with interest, ready to taste the desperate wailing of the yellow monkey. However, the next scene shocked them greatly. Jim's fist landed in front of the yellow monkey, and he could no longer get close. They initially thought that Jim was pretending to be joking, and they teased him. "Jim, stop playing, the transaction is about to start, if you delay, the boss will definitely peel your skin." "That's right, beat this yellow monkey for me quickly, I can't wait to see his screams of pain." "No, I didn't." Jim looked at the man in front of him in fear, his originally dark brown pupils turned into a deep blue, and even his jet black hair turned pure white for some reason after one night. At this time, he was obviously smiling at himself, but the cruel arc at the corner of his mouth, as well as the ridicule and playfulness in his eyes, all represented that all this was his doing. What on earth was going on? Jim thought of something. Could it be that the man in front of him was a mutant? At this time, the gang members behind him also found something wrong from Jim's answer, and after careful observation, they noticed more details. The veins on Jim's arm bulged and his muscles kept trembling, which meant that he had used all his strength. And the closer he got to the palm of the yellow monkey, the more strange the trembling occurred, as if the space was seriously distorted so that the light was refracted. Something was wrong. Everything that happened in front of them was wrong. They all thought of something. Could it be that the yellow monkey was actually a mutant? Inexplicable fear enveloped their hearts, especially when they saw the indifferent smile on Suemu's face. They all instinctively took a step back. Looking at the black man who kept trying to get close to him, Su-mu showed an encouraging smile. Come on, you can touch me if you try harder. However, as soon as the voice fell, the smile on Su-mu's face disappeared immediately, because Jim actually wanted to turn around and run away because of the fear of the unknown. How could Su-mu let this black man escape? He still had a gift that he hadn't opened. The energy in his body circulated rapidly, providing a significant strengthening for his body. Then, at a speed that ordinary people could not see, he stretched out his hand to hold down the black man's head, and used his head to exert force to smash his body to the ground. Bang! The black man's head collided with the ground, making a chilling sound. Then the black man fainted because of the violent collision of his head. Su-mu would not stop like this. He used his strengthened body to step hard on the black man's limbs. The huge force crushed the flesh and blood body, and the flesh and blood flowed under Su-mu's feet and gradually spread. When Jim's right arm was crushed, he was awakened by the severe pain, screaming violently and struggling constantly. But how could he resist Su-mu? He could only watch Su-mu crush his limbs and turn him into a complete useless person. Su-mu no longer looked at Jim. The gift had been delivered, which was enough, regardless of whether he was satisfied or not. Seeing the terrifying man in the prison looking at them in the blood, his cold eyes woke them up from the daze caused by the violent shock. One of them reacted immediately and shouted loudly. His ability must be very limited, otherwise how could he be caught by Jim? Shoot him, you will definitely kill him. Everyone else reacted immediately, yes. That's right, shoot. This gang member had obviously experienced many battles and was well trained. He immediately recovered from the panic and used the rifle in his hand to shoot at Su-mu. But something happened that made them desperate. They saw a large number of bullets floating in the air, twisting strangely, but they could not get close to the terrifying man at all. It was as if the distance between the two was not a few centimeters, but the end of the world. Unlimited technique. How is it possible? Why doesn't it work? What exactly is his mutant ability? Since he has such a terrifying ability, why was he caught by Jim before? They could no longer maintain their composure and could only pull the trigger instinctively, shooting at Su-mu crazily. But these bullets could not get close to Su-mu at all, and he even had the leisure to help Jim block the bullets. Su-mu didn't want this black man to die so easily. He wanted him to sink in despair and pain. Then Su-mu looked at the gang members who kept shooting, and the other gang members who came to support after hearing the noise here, then grinned, drew a mysterious arc, stretched out his hands in a relaxed manner, and clasped them slightly against each other. The technique is forward, Kang. The energy in the body flows in a special way, and a terrifying blue vortex quickly forms in front of Su-mu, and all the bullets shot are swallowed by the vortex like a black hole. When everything is charged, boom, the terrifying blue vortex blooms and flies forward at a high speed. Whether it is flesh and blood, or steel and concrete, they are all sucked into it by the powerful suction and disappear. When everything calms down, all the gang members in front have disappeared, not even a piece of flesh and blood is left. Seeing the scene in front of them, the whole place was silent, and all the people who were still alive were shocked to see this scene. What is this? Can mutants do this? Devil, he is a devil. The nearest gang member took off the limbs that fell on his face tremblingly, and then screamed and fled away. But before he could escape a few steps, he was shot in the head by the gang leader. The gang leader shouted loudly. Why are you screaming? How could he release that move continuously? Let's shoot at him together to consume his physical strength. Jello, bring the rocket launcher. Don't forget, we must do this order well, otherwise Kingpin will not let us go. The words of the gang leader immediately calmed down all the gang members. They looked at Su-mu, gritted their teeth, and started shooting crazily. It was as if the man named Kingpin was more terrifying than Su-mu, who had just released the terrifying blue black hole. Facing the bullets that were shot like a rainstorm, Su-mu did not dodge. The consumption of the unlimited technique is calculated in time, not the strength of the attack. He rushed towards the many gang members with a cruel smile, as if bathing in the breeze. Energy strengthens the body, and the various combat experiences from the Gojo Satoru template strengthen Su-mu's spirit. Facing a battlefield he had never experienced before, he did not feel any tension or fear, but the arc of his mouth became more and more obvious. He pushed his right foot backward, and the energy was first converted into spell power, and then strengthened his body by the 6-eye micro-manipulation. Boom! The flesh and blood body crushed the ground and rushed towards dozens of gang members head-on. Hands, feet, joints, and all parts of the human body, under the inheritance of Gojo Satoru's superb skills and the fine control of the 6 eyes, have become deadly killing tools. The gang members could not catch Suemu's figure at all, and the stray bullets that happened to hit Suemu were also blocked by the unlimited technique. A large number of gang members fell down like mowing the grass, unable to stand up again. Finally, Suemu came to the gang leader, smiled, put his hands in his trouser pockets, and walked slowly towards him. Looking at the mutants in front of him, the gang leader was filled with fear. The man in front of him had broken all his impressions of mutants. How could mutants be so strong? If mutants were so strong, how could they be like rats crossing the street, and everyone would shout and beat them? I don't believe it. There must be some flaw in your ability. The gang leader roared at Suemu unwillingly, trying to use his roar to dispel the fear in his heart. Just at this moment, a gangster took out the rocket launcher and handed it to the gang leader. Seeing the rocket launcher, the gang leader's eyes lit up, and all the fear just now was dispelled by the rocket launcher. He snatched the rocket launcher from the gangster's hand, and then roared at Suemu fiercely. Go to hell! Under the fierce fire, the rocket launcher rushed towards Suemu, and then exploded violently in front of his feet. The gang leader laughed loudly while shaking all over. Mutants, yellow monkeys, die. But when the explosion faded, clear footsteps came out of the smoke and dust, and an arm stretched out from the smoke and dust, suddenly pinching the gang leader's neck. Ah! The deep blue light as deep as the deep sea appeared first, followed by the eye-catching white short hair, and finally the dirty clothes that were completely inconsistent with the former and the wounds of all sizes all over the body. In the fearful eyes of the gang leader and his brothers, Suemu smiled grimly. The technique is reversed to Kang. Quote, the blue vortex gathered in his hand again. Amid the screams of the gang leader, he first swallowed it completely, then continued to fly forward at high speed, breaking a huge crack in the prison wall. After doing everything, Suemu ignored the people behind him, used the energy conversion spell to strengthen his body, disappeared from the spot, passed through the gap in the wall, and rushed out of the cage, leaving only the remaining gang members who had lost their combat ability and many innocent residents whose cell doors were opened. After Suemu left, the whole place was silent. After tens of seconds, huge cheers resounded through the prison, and many innocent people rushed to the gap called freedom. A few hours later, in an extremely luxurious room in Hell's Kitchen, a dazzling crystal chandelier hung on the ceiling, illuminating the scene below. The leader sat on a chair, his face seemed to be covered by a shadow. He was 2 meters tall and burly, like a mountain sitting there. The man who reported to him at this time was a man in a strange tights. Bullseye, you said this transaction failed. Quote, if an ordinary person faced the man named Kingpin, he would have trembled all over and even couldn't stand, but Bullseye continued calmly, like a machine. Yes, almost all members are dead, and most of them don't even have bodies. This seems to be because there is a mutant in the cargo, and all this is his fault. The room fell silent again, until a minute later, Kingpin opened his eyes and said to Bullseye without emotion. Can I kill him? As long as he is a human, I can kill him. Then I want to see his body within a week. As you wish. At the same time, in a hidden corner of Hell's Kitchen, in an underground prison, a kind-looking Mediterranean man walked into the basement, followed by several gang members who were still alive and survivors who escaped from the prison. After arriving at the prison, Coulson could no longer maintain the kindness on his face. Looking at the twisted and deformed metal cage, the broken floor, and the wall with a huge gap blasted out by an unknown attack, he couldn't help but ask. You said this was all done by a mutant. The people behind him nodded immediately, and one of the young innocent ladies came out with a longing look on her face, and said to Phil Coulson. Yes, that is a very handsome gentleman. He has unforgettable silver hair, deep eyes like a lake, elegant manners, and powerful strength. He is completely different from those violent mutants, he is a real gentleman. Although the nympho lady in front of him has a beautified charm, it still reveals some information about the mysterious mutant. He once again looked at the strange scene around him, especially the huge gap in the wall and the pit on the ground, and then muttered to himself. The blue black hole vortex. An unknown powerful mutant, definitely at level 3, possibly level 4, and level 5 is not impossible. Just then, a deep voice came from the headset hanging beside his ear. Agent Coulson, what's the situation? Director Fury, the mutants this time are very powerful and can definitely be part of your plan. Well, good, search for his whereabouts with all your strength, and try to win him over, and try to pull him into our plan. Rush out of the gangster's prison, and identify the surrounding environment through the original owner's memory. As expected, the prison is in Hell's Kitchen. After confirming the location of this place, Sumu rushed in one direction. His identity as a mutant had been exposed when he awakened. He was arrested by the authorities at this time, and the gangsters who arrested him would not let him go. Before killing the gang leader, Sumu learned from the gang leader that these gang members should be Jin Bing's men, and Jin Bing was the underground emperor of New York. Jin Bing, whose business was destroyed, would never let him go. So facing the capture and pursuit of both parties, improving strength is the most important thing at present. Because of the continuous use of the unlimited technique, and the use of the technique twice to turn, Kang, and the energy in the body is on the verge of exhaustion. If he encounters the pursuit troops at this time, then he has no power to resist. Passing a corner again, a transformer appeared in front of Sumu, and he was relieved. Electricity is the easiest source of energy he can think of, and it is also the guarantee for him to survive the early stage. The Six Eyes gave Sumu extremely precise energy operations. At this time, he used his energy absorption ability to slowly absorb the current on the voltage generator, just reaching the limit of his speed at this time. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Looking at the constantly increasing energy points and sensing the body that was constantly filling up, Sumu showed a satisfied smile. Sensing that the energy in his body was close to overflowing, Sumu began to practice the skills he had acquired. The abilities given by the panel were initially only level 1, and they must be improved through uninterrupted practice. For example, the skill of the technique, Kang, was far less powerful than that of Gojo Satoru. Only by continuous practice and upgrading the skills can he achieve a stronger power. Sumu, who has a system, can even surpass the template prototype if he upgrades his skills to a sufficient level and reach an unprecedented level. Among the abilities he possessed at this time, the Six Eyes could not directly enhance his strength. Energy absorption was a skill that would be upgraded the fastest through continuous practice and experience. The particularity of the unlimited technique meant that upgrading this skill could only reduce consumption, and only when it was upgraded to a high enough level could it undergo a transformation. So Sumu immediately began to practice the technique of Kang, which had a powerful attack capability, but the level was too low at this time, and it could only condense a very small black hole, and the speed was very slow. If facing ordinary people, it could be easily crushed, but if facing mutants or other superpowers, it would be difficult to hit them, and they would become useless. With the help of the Six Eyes, Sumu condensed a blue black hole the size of a ping-pong ball, and constantly controlled the black hole to move around. At the same time, the system panel gave a prompt. Experience +1 for the skill of Kang. Experience +1 for the skill of Kang. Experience +1 for the skill of Kang. The skill of level 1 is easy to upgrade. Sumu hid in the substation, constantly absorbed electricity, and practiced the skill of Kang. After 3 hours, the system panel gave a prompt. Experience +1 for the skill of Kang. Experience +1 for the skill of Kang. Congratulations, the skill of Kang has been upgraded. Level 2 of the skill of Kang, 1/300th. Create a strong suction force with Kang as the center, and the maximum output can reach negative infinity, which is similar to a small black hole. At the moment of upgrading, Sumu immediately felt that there were more ways to use the skill of Kang in his mind. Although the skill introduction has not changed, the power is completely different and has undergone a huge change. After the skill upgrade was completed, Sumu was about to test the changes in the upgraded skill when he suddenly heard the sound of the bolt of the gun behind him. Hey, the unlucky guy in front, hand over all the money on you, otherwise I'll let you taste the power of the gun. Through the Six Eyes, Sumu had already noticed the approach of the man behind him, and had already released the unlimited technique. He turned around calmly, and at this time a middle-aged sloppy man was holding a pistol and pointing it at him, obviously wanting to rob him, which is also a feature of the United States. The middle-aged man wanted to try his luck nearby today, but he didn't expect to find a prey. He immediately stepped forward, pulled the bolt, and ordered the man in front of him to hand over all the money on his body. Originally, he wanted to get the money and leave immediately, but when he saw Suemu's specific appearance, the middle-aged man was stunned, then licked his lips, and smiled obscenely. I changed my mind. Not only do you have to hand over all the money, but you also have to face the wall for me. Hearing the words of the sloppy middle-aged man, Sumu immediately couldn't stand it. He originally wanted to use the middle-aged man to experiment with his newly acquired skills, but now he thought about it and just went straight up. Just as Sumu was about to release the spell to turn, Kang, a violent sound of breaking through the air suddenly came from the side. Then he saw a figure wearing a black and white tights, a hood, and a slim figure swinging spider silk from a distance, and then kicked the middle-aged sloppy man away. During the flight of the middle-aged sloppy man, several spider silks arrived first, wrapped him up, and then hung on the street lamp next to him. The hooded girl attached one side of her body to the wall of the house, and the other side of her body naturally fell down, and said to Sumu, "Sir, are you okay? No need to thank me, I'm Spider-Woman, a good neighbor in New York." Spider-Woman. When Sumu saw this beautiful figure, he immediately recognized her identity. Isn't this Spider-Gwen? Why is Spider-Man not Peter Parker, but Gwen Stacy? Could it be that this world is not the movie universe, but an unknown parallel universe? While Sumu was thinking, seeing that Gwen did not answer Sumu, he couldn't help but worry about this gentleman. Could he be injured? When he got closer, he found that this gentleman was covered with scars of all sizes. Although most of them have healed, they still look hideous. So she continued, "Sir, you are injured. Do you want me to take you to the hospital?" Sumu still has a good impression of Gwen. When watching Spider-Man's parallel universe, he has a good impression of this strong and brave Spider-Woman. No, I'm fine. But, seeing that Sumu refused his help, when Gwen wanted to say something, the spider sense was activated. There is danger. She subconsciously wanted to catch the gentleman in front of her and take her to a safe place, but when she flew away on the spider silk, she suddenly found that she couldn't catch the gentleman. What happened? Then she heard the sound of the wall breaking and the house collapsing. Oh, seeing the huge lizard man completely destroy the substation, Gwen didn't think that the gentleman could survive the attack of the lizard man. Because of her negligence, an innocent gentleman died. He looked very young, only a few years older than herself. Gwen looked at the huge lizard monster angrily. "Dr. Connerson, I will defeat you this time and arrest you." Spider-Gwen attacked the lizard man. Although the lizard man's power could easily break the concrete pillars, facing the flexible Spider-Woman, she had no choice but to bear Gwen's attack. However, although Gwen's attacks kept hitting the lizard man, they were unable to cause effective damage. The lizard man has rough skin and thick flesh, and also has the ability to regenerate. Even if Gwen faced an attack that could kill an ordinary person with one punch, he still did not suffer much damage. Even if you are slightly injured, you can recover quickly with the regeneration ability. Gwen's strength was indeed enhanced in her anger, but her physical strength was also exhausted very quickly, and she was out of breath soon. As her physical strength declined, her speed and strength also began to decline, and finally she gradually fell into a disadvantage. Suddenly, the lizard man caught a flaw in Gwen's body, immediately grabbed one of her legs, and threw her away. With a loud noise, a human-shaped depression was made in the dilapidated wall nearby. At this time, Gwen had just gained extraordinary powers. She was hit so hard and the intense pain made it impossible for her to recover. She struggled to stand up, but the terrifying green figure had already appeared in front of her, blocking the dim lights of the street, leaving only a lightless shadow. A harsh sound broke through the air, and Gwen was kicked away again. This time she completely lost her ability to resist. The sound of heavy footsteps came, and Gwen tried hard to raise her head and struggled to get up, but to no avail. She looked desperately at the slowly approaching lizard man, and the fear of death enveloped her. Dr. Connors, who turned into a lizard man, has completely lost his humanity. She doesn't think Dr. Connors will let her go. Is it possible that I have just gained extraordinary abilities and am about to die? No, I don't want to die. Quote, but the severe pain radiating from all parts of her body and her uncontrollable body told her that she no longer had the power to resist. She was about to sink into the abyss of death just like the husband just now. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the distance. The owner of this voice was supposed to be dead, so that Gwen thought he was hallucinating. But when she saw the lizard man stop, she realized that she had heard correctly. The gentleman just now is not dead. How can this be? But the sound that came next confirmed her guess, even though it was impossible. I said, didn't you hear me? Ugly. Seeing the lizard man turn around and look at him, Sumyu curved the corners of his mouth in a ferocious arc. Attacking me directly, do you think I'm easy to bully? The lizard man looked at Sumyu with some confusion. Why did the ant suddenly become alive again? Professor Knerson himself has extremely high intelligence, but after turning into a lizard man, he turned out to be a monster with a low IQ, and he was better at instinctive destruction than thinking. After seeing Sumyu resurrected, he only paused for a moment, then immediately rushed towards Sumyu, wanting to tear the ants in front of him into pieces. When Gwen saw this scene, although she didn't understand how this gentleman escaped from the attack just now, she believed that this gentleman was definitely no match for the lizard man. So she immediately reminded, run away. But what happened next made her eyes widen in disbelief. Roar! The lizard man roared angrily and rushed towards Sumyu. The lizard man's body looks very bloated, but his speed is not slow. The reason why he looks clumsy is just compared to the nimble spider woman. In fact, his speed, agility and reflexes are comparable to Spider Woman, but his huge body only slows down his speed. But this is not without its benefits. His huge body reduces his speed and increases his strength. At this time, he rushed towards Sumyu, making Sumyu feel like he was facing a truck rushing straight towards him. But it's just a truck. Sumyu stretched forward with one hand, and the surrounding space continued to overlap, reaching an infinite level, making it impossible for any object to approach him. No lower limit for spells. Under Gwen's gaze, the giant lizard man was about to hit the poor gentleman. With that gentleman's thin body, he would definitely be smashed into a pulp. She couldn't bear to see what was about to happen next. However, the gentleman stretched out his hand and blocked it in front of him. Facing the huge lizard man, the thin arm was as easy to break as a chopstick. But just a thin arm prevents the lizard man from moving forward. In the end, what happened? What's wrong with this world? Why do I suddenly not recognize it? Gwen issued such questions continuously. Looking at the lizard man in front of him who kept attacking him but could not make an inch, Sumyu smiled brightly at him. Come on, if you work harder, maybe you can meet me. How could the lizard man endure being so provoked? He burst out with even greater strength, his muscles all over his body knitted together and collapsed into a ball, and he unleashed the strongest blow. But, still no effect. The distance of just a few centimeters was like a world away, completely out of reach. After playing with the lizard man for a while, Sumyu also lost patience, and the energy was transformed into pure spell power, filling the whole body. He wants to settle this battle. With Sumyu's current template fusion level, even if the cursed power strengthens his body, he is no match for the lizard man. However, with the help of the 6 eyes, the lizard man is just a big sandbag. The unlimited technique has been in the open state, and the lizard man cannot touch Sumyu at all, but Sumyu can touch the lizard man at will. After the attack strengthened by the cursed power, the lizard man was hit. In Gwen's shocked eyes, the gentleman who looked very thin was beating the lizard man and completely suppressing him. Like a bodybuilding gymnast, every move of Sumyu is handsome and lethal. Bang! The foot collided with the lizard man's chest, and the lizard man was kicked out, breaking through several walls, and finally fell to the ground. But immediately, it stood up again. Even though Sumyu's attack just now caused him a lot of damage, it recovered immediately under the terrifying regeneration ability and could not have a significant effect. Gwen's pupils, which were once again filled with hope, dimmed again. That's right, she was defeated by this terrifying regeneration ability. Even if that gentleman was surprisingly strong, he would be exhausted to death by the terrifying regeneration ability if he could not cause fatal damage to the lizard man. So she said to that gentleman, This gentleman, Dr. Lizard, has a very strong recovery ability. If you can't defeat him in one go, you may be exhausted to death by him. Your damage must be faster than its self-healing speed to defeat him. Su Mu ignored Spider-Woman, but looked at the increasingly violent Lizard Man. After the Lizard Man's injuries recovered, he immediately rushed towards him. A hideous smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and he looked at the big guy in front of him and sneered. Do you really think I can't do anything to you? He stretched out his palm, and his slender and bony fingers shrank slightly, and then his voice became indifferent. The technique is forward to, Kang. Quote, the azure terrifying vortex appeared again, swallowing everything around it. The moment he cast the spell to reverse, Kang, Su Mu immediately felt something different. The energy in his body was rapidly converted into spell power and consumed. The blue black hole that could only condense the size of a pineapple was now the size of a basketball. Of course, as the power increases, the consumption is much greater than before. However, it consumed a lot of energy, and the performance of the LV2 spell reversing, Kang, did not disappoint Su Mu. The azure black hole swept towards the Lizard Man at more than twice its original speed. The Lizard Man instinctively sensed the danger, but because the distance was too close and the speed of the azure black hole was too fast, he could not avoid it at all. Then Gwen, who was watching the battle from a distance, saw the scene in front of him. The Lizard Man's body twisted violently, and a large amount of fascia and flesh moved toward the center of the body. Then a terrifying blue-black hole rushed out of the Lizard Man's chest, continuously devouring his flesh and blood until it was completely swallowed up. And even if it completely swallowed up the Lizard Man's body, the terrifying azure black hole still didn't stop, constantly devouring everything around it. The air, the floor, the broken walls, and the street lights. What frightened her was that the terrifying azure black hole flew towards her at extremely high speed. She was seriously injured at this time and could not escape at all. She could only wait for death to come. Facing the lizard people, she was filled with unwillingness, but facing the terrifying blue black hole, she was about to lose her ability to think. That terrifying azure black hole was impossible to stop, swallowing everything around it, not even her thoughts. Gwen's mind went blank. However, when the azure black hole was still several meters away from her and the terrifying attraction had already acted on her body, the vortex suddenly disappeared and disappeared. She also recovered from holding her breath and gasped violently. She had never been so close to death. I have never been so helpless. Is this really a power that humans can control? After releasing the spell to reverse, Kang, Su Mu looked at the completely disappeared lizard man and smiled with satisfaction. The improvement of Kang in the reversal of the technique was greater than he imagined. In this way, around LV4 or LV5, you can reach the level of Gojo Enlightenment. When the skill level is improved again on this basis, he will be far more powerful than Gojo Satoru. When it was all over, Su Mu looked forward and saw that her good neighbor in New York, Spider-Woman, had fainted due to serious injuries. Observation through 6 eyes showed that she had multiple fractures all over her body, her internal organs were slightly ruptured and bleeding was oozing. However, Spider-Woman has a self-healing factor that allows her to heal quickly regardless of her injuries. But the current location is Hell's Kitchen, and a battle has just occurred, so there must be a lot of eyes on this place. Although Su Mu was not a good person, he still didn't want to see his favorite character die in front of him. 6 eyes experience +1. 6 eyes experience +1. 6 eyes experience +1. Following the system prompts, Su Mu used her 6 eyes to check Gwen's physical condition, and accurately restored her dislocated bones with her hands so that she could recover faster. At this moment, Su Mu thought of something and took off Spider-Woman's hood and mask, revealing a delicate and pretty face from under the hood. With short blonde hair and a delicate face, yes, this is Gwen Stacy. But at this time, Gwen is more beautiful than the Gwen who appears in movies or animations. At this moment, Spider-Woman in Su Mu's arms suddenly woke up. Looking at the handsome man hugging her, she was a little dazed at first. After waking up, she immediately jumped out of Su Mu's arms and flipped upside down to a few meters away. However, her movements were slightly deformed because she was far from recovering from the injury. She suddenly fell to the ground accidentally and immediately struggled to get up. You. After Gwen stood firm, she suddenly noticed the white mask in the hand of the man in front of her, touched her face again, and immediately realized that her true appearance had been discovered. Oh my God, what should I do? Why was her identity immediately discovered by others when she first became Spider-Woman? Gwen was confused at this time and didn't know what to do. Unexpectedly, Gwen regained consciousness immediately, which surprised Su-Mu. Spider-Woman's ability to heal herself should not be underestimated. He held the mask in his hand and said to Gwen, I didn't expect that my good neighbor Spider-Woman would be so young. Are you still in school? Why did you take off my hood? Su-Mu tilted her head, then showed a bright smile. Can't you? I'm really sorry. If you are unhappy, then hit me. Quote. Gwen. Ever since Su-Mu instantly killed Dr. Lizard, she already knew how much power the seemingly thin man in front of her contained in his body, and how she was no match for the man in front of her. Why did you kill Dr. Lizard? He only became cruel and devouring because of the mutation of the medicine, but he is actually a good person. Gwen thought of something and asked. Facing Gwen's questioning, Su-Mu was not surprised. She was a kind-hearted girl. This was one of the reasons why he liked Gwen. But he wants the person he likes to be kind, but he is not a kind person. Because he wants to kill me, then he must be prepared to be killed by me. Gwen wanted to say something, but she didn't say anything. Because from Su-Mu's perspective, he was not wrong, it was self-defense. But a familiar elder suddenly died in front of her, which still made her a little overwhelmed, so she stopped talking, just left a sentence, and flew away with the spider silk. Maybe you are not wrong, but I think I should go. Looking at Gwen flying away, Su-Mu shouted, Your mask. Spider-Woman was slightly stunned, hesitated for a moment, and returned to the original way, snatched the mask from Su-Mu's hand, and then left. Although I really want to punch that hateful smiley face, considering the difference in strength, forget it. Just as Spider-Woman thought from the heart. Looking at the Spider-Woman going away, Su-Mu suddenly felt that traveling through time was also very good. At least she could interact with the characters she liked in her previous life, and now they were no longer heroes that could only be seen from one side of the screen, they were living people with their own joys and sorrows. Sensing the remaining energy in his body, Su-Mu grabbed the broken wire and continued to absorb electricity. Energy absorption experience +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Energy absorption experience +1. 6i experience +1. 6i experience +1. 6i experience +1. While absorbing energy, the 6 eyes are constantly activated, giving Su-Mu the ability to accurately control energy. So the experience value of the 6 eyes is also constantly increasing. After a few minutes, the system pops up a prompt box. 6i experience +1. Congratulations, the skill 6 eyes is upgraded. 6 eyes LV2 1/300. It has a 360-degree long-distance viewing angle, can see the flow of energy, and has amazing dynamic vision, allowing the holder to perform fine energy operations. After the 6i upgrade, the 360-degree long-distance viewing angle has been doubled, from 200 meters to 500 meters. Of course, this is the range of vision that can be clearly observed, able to clearly capture small targets, observe the specific flow of energy, and have extremely strong dynamic capture capabilities. If the vision is blurry, then his vision is further away, and of course he will be the same as ordinary people, who can only see, but cannot see clearly. In addition, reaching level 2 also awakens another ability, clairvoyance. At this time, his 6 eyes can penetrate a steel plate of about 10 centimeters and observe the internal situation. Unlike the white eyes, which appear in black and white, he can see colorful things and see them extremely clearly. This is not possible. Su-Mu suddenly felt a little bored after getting one of the most desired superpowers in his previous life so easily. Suddenly, Su-Mu saw several drones flying towards here from the expanded site. Further away, a heavily armed force could be seen moving forward at great speed, following closely behind the drone. This is definitely not revenge from Jin Bin, and it is definitely not the work of gangsters. How could they have such sophisticated equipment? This is the power of the army, it should be a secret force dedicated to catching mutants. In a short moment, the drone was approaching. Su-Mu showed a ferocious smile to the camera on the drone, and then the blue black hole swallowed all the drones. After that, He used the magic power to strengthen his body and quickly left the place. Su Mu learned from the memory of the original owner that there were mutants in this force who joined the military, and their strength should not be underestimated. Even if you have unlimited spells, you are not safe when faced with all kinds of weird skills. This is the time when he is growing at the fastest speed, so there is no need to fight with the army. What he needs now is to continuously absorb energy and improve the degree of template fusion. When he awakens to reverse the spell, he will have no worries at all. Note: the reversal technique has a powerful therapeutic effect. In a hidden military base, a large number of screens are displayed on the wall. Suddenly, several screens went out almost at the same time, which showed that at least several drones were destroyed at the same time in a very short period of time. Noticing this scene, a middle-aged man wearing the rank of colonel, with a serious face and sinister eyes asked the soldier. What happened? The soldier immediately stood up and reported to the middle-aged man. Colonel Stryker, a mutation occurred when we captured number 9527. The target seems to have awakened for the second time and awakened other mutant abilities. Stryker's eyes flashed, and then he came to the screen and said to the soldier, "Retrieve images of the drone before it was destroyed." The soldiers immediately projected the images recorded before the drone was destroyed onto the largest screen. The drone was seen flying forward, and soon a tall, thin man with white hair appeared on the screen. When the drone stopped in the air and pointed towards the white-haired man, he saw the white-haired man grinning at the camera, and then a blue black hole the size of a basketball was produced in his hand, flying towards the camera at a high speed, and the screen immediately went black. Presumably the drone was destroyed. Turning on several other drone videos, the situation was the same. The unknown blue black hole was extremely fast and destroyed all the drones in the blink of an eye. Colonel Stryker's eyes were serious. He had some impressions about number 9527, because his abilities were the same as an extremely powerful mutant from decades ago. And that mutant is a terrifying existence that can absorb nuclear energy. But the energy of number 9527 was too weak, and even the kinetic energy of ordinary people's boxing could not be fully absorbed, so he did not pay much attention to him. Unexpectedly, he appeared again at this time and awakened other abilities. After watching the video several times, the picture finally stopped on the blue black hole. The attack capability of this black hole is obviously very strong, and it can easily tear apart metal and destroy drones. And 9527 also exhibits another ability, which is extremely wide perception. He was initially waiting for the drone to arrive, and had obviously already noticed its whereabouts. Moreover, No 9527's hair color turned white and blue pupils aroused his curiosity. The video scrolled again and stopped on that ferocious smile. Colonel Stryker showed a cruel smile, and then issued an order. Go all out to capture 9527. He is of great research value. Send experimental subjects 1085 and 1086 to assist in the capture. 1086's space attack should be able to break through 9527's defense. After giving the order, he murmured to himself again. Provocative. That's as you wish. No. 1407 Grimmagen Road, Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, in a hidden laboratory. Jean Grey handed a report to Professor X. Professor, we discovered a strange movement in Stryker's troops. They seem to be deploying most of their forces to capture a mutant numbered 9527. 9527. For the same reason as Stryker, Professor X was equally impressed by the mutant named 9527 by Stryker. This reminded him of the most powerful enemy he had ever encountered, the Black Emperor, Sebastian Shaw. At this moment, if it weren't for good luck, he and Eric would not be able to kill him at all. But the young Chinese man named Su Mu, number 9527, has a very low upper limit of ability. He is also extremely weak among the first-level mutants, and his ability is almost non-existent. This also made him not care, and he did not immediately invite him to join Xavier's School for Gifted Youth. Unexpectedly, he saw his name in Stryker's target at this time. Professor X knew Stryker. If Su Mu had no value, he would definitely not spend a lot of energy to capture him. At this time, he concentrated on capturing him. Su Mu must have undergone some mysterious changes. So he immediately used the brainwave amplifier to find Su-Emu's location, and wanted to invite him to join Xavier's school for gifted youth before Stryker. But why is there no Su-Emu's consciousness? Obviously, I could clearly sense it before. You know, even Jean Grey, who has infinite potential, can sense the existence of her consciousness. Could it be? Professor X suddenly realized something. Could it be that the mysterious changes in Su-Mu were related to this? And it can actually block the invasion of his consciousness, and even make him unable to perceive. Does Su-Mu have the potential to be a level 5 mutant? Or, he has already become a level 5 mutant? Thinking of this, Professor X immediately said to Jean Grey, "Do your best to find Su-Emu's traces, and make sure to contact him before Stryker and Eric, win him over, and let him join Xavier's school for gifted youths." Su-Mu is likely to be a level 5 mutant. At the same time, a slim and graceful urban girl crossed the street, entered a narrow alley, and finally walked into a room. A man wearing a strange helmet stood at the window in the room, looking at the busy road with deep eyes. "Eric, I found a new message. Stryker and Charles are looking for a mutant named Su-Mu, but his mutant ability is only the first level energy absorption. I suspect that his mutant ability has awakened for the second time, which attracted their attention." Magneto did not look back, still observing everything in front of him, especially those ordinary people without mutant abilities. Energy absorption. Raven, contact Su-Mu immediately, before them. The mutant that Charles and Stryker are concerned about is definitely not ordinary, pull him into the mutant brotherhood. Su-Mu naturally didn't know that because of his second awakening ability, he had been targeted by several forces. At this time, he had left Hell's Kitchen, and bought a new set of clothes with the US dollars donated by gang members, and took a shower in a hotel. Because he constantly absorbed energy and used it to strengthen his body, even though he had not yet learned the reversal technique, his injuries still recovered at a speed far beyond that of ordinary people. Even some of the scars left behind gradually faded, revealing fair skin. Putting on a pair of round-frame sunglasses, he looked brand new, and there was no trace of his embarrassment in the underground prison. He was now a 1.9-meter tall evil handsome man. Saying goodbye to the female store manager who kept winking at him, Su-Mu walked out under the regretful gaze of the female store manager. Because he was arrested by the military and threatened by Jin Bing, he did not want to stay in one place for too long. Opening the system panel, Su-Mu looked at the energy point column. Energy points, 3,425. After several hours of continuous energy absorption, Su-Emu's energy points reached a huge 3,000. He immediately put all his energy points into the system, and the template fusion degree increased rapidly, finally stopping at 23%. The system prompt finally sounded again. Template fusion degree, 23%. You have awakened a new skill, reversal technique. Reversal technique LV1 1/100th transforms the negative energy of the cursed power into positive energy, with a strong healing effect. Finally got the reversal technique. After getting the reversal technique, Su-Emu's survivability will be improved again, and he will have a stronger self-healing ability than the Lizardman. When getting the reversal technique, Su-Mu learned from the information in his mind that he could not use the reversal technique on others at this time, but could only heal himself. However, as the skill level increases, all of this will be solved, and he will even have the ability to revive and restore the essence of things. At this moment, through the six eyes, Su-Mu observed a figure rushing towards him at a very fast speed. It was a strong man over 2 meters tall. He ignored the civilians around him at this time and rushed around, knocking a large number of civilians away. In a moment, there was a wailing sound around, and some civilians were even dead. Further away, drones and most of the army have already assembled and are constantly rushing here. The strong man stopped. His muscles were not at all over his body, his skin was a deep gray, and a lot of blue veins were constantly wriggling under his skin, constantly transporting energy to his strong body. He carried a short man like a dwarf on his back. Unlike the strong man, the short man was extremely thin, and his body was not even as thick as the strong man's arm. Su-Mu did not leave. Judging from the speed observed by the six eyes, the strong man's speed was much faster than his. Unless he mastered the advanced means of the art of Kang teleportation, he would not be able to escape his pursuit. But unfortunately, the level of the art of Kang, was still too low at this time, and he could not master it. The strong man stopped 10 meters away from Su-mu, his bare feet dug deep into the ground, completely shattering the ground and reducing his kinetic energy. A large number of scattered stones flew towards Su-mu, but before they touched him, they floated in the air and could not get close to him at all. Seeing this, the sturdy man nodded and said, "White hair, blue eyes, and this strange ability, you are number 9527, right?" 9527. Su-mu is very familiar with this number. Isn't this the number in the movie? Why does this sturdy man call him 9527? Seeing Su-mu's confusion, but the sturdy man didn't mean to explain. 9527, don't resist, come back with me, Colonel Stryker wants to see you. Don't resist in vain, you don't want to be twisted off your limbs and taken back by force. The sturdy man said as a matter of course, obviously not taking Su-mu seriously at all, treating him as a prey that can be hunted at will. After that, he rushed forward to grab Su-mu, but when he was still a few centimeters away from Su-mu, he couldn't get close at all. Unlimited technique. Seeing this strange phenomenon, the sturdy man had a ferocious look on his face, and then said, "It seems that you have to suffer a lot. Just before you join us, I will set some rules for you." Su-mu slightly raised his round-framed sunglasses, revealing his delicate blue eyes. He used his little finger to pick his ear hole, put his little finger without earwax in front, and then blew it towards the sturdy man. In the eyes of the strong man, Su-mu showed a bright smile, but his eyes were full of coldness. "Okay, we have to set rules. As long as you are willing to cry and apologize, I will spare your life. This is the rule." Rampant. Being underestimated by his prey, the strong man could no longer bear it and waved his fist to attack Su-mu, but it did not work. Su-mu put down his sunglasses and walked slowly towards the strong man. Then the strong man felt a huge force pressing on him. His huge body, which he was proud of, had no power to resist under this terrifying force. At this time, the army in the distance also arrived. They shot at Su-mu frantically, but the bullets could not get close to Su-mu at all. In this way, in the hail of bullets, Su-mu pressed the strong man against a wall. As he continued to move forward, the wall began to gradually break. "Aren't you going to cry and beg for mercy?" Su-mu said lightly. Looking at the enemy in front of him, the strong man finally realized that the target this time was not at the same level as his previous opponents. He was not an opponent at all. Fear fermented in his heart, filling his mind in a short time. So he ignored the plan and shouted, "Don't make a move." The moment the strong man opened his mouth, Su-mu felt a familiar fluctuation. That was the power of space. Looking at the dwarf on the strong man's body, it was indeed the power of space he released, and an invisible space blade flew towards him at a high speed. The speed of the space blade was so fast that he couldn't dodge it at all. Sizzle. The sound of flesh and blood breaking sounded, and Su-mu was almost cut in half by the space blade amid the strong man's hideous laughter. Although he knew that there was definitely a problem for a strong man to carry a dwarf on his back, the speed of the space blade was too fast, and even the dynamic vision of 6 eyes could not catch it. Although he tried his best to avoid it, Su-mu was still seriously injured and almost cut in half. He immediately reached out and pressed forward, using Kang to create an attraction behind the strong man. The huge attraction attracted the strong man, and the originally broken wall could no longer withstand the huge pressure and shattered. The strong man was also knocked into the shop behind him, causing many customers to scream. This uncharged attack was unable to cause harm to the strong man at all. Even the dwarf lying on his body was well protected by him and was not injured at all. The strong man climbed up, dusted himself off, ignored the civilians around him, looked at Su-mu, who was bleeding a lot of blood from his chest and abdomen, and said with a cruel smile, "Stupid guy, let me see how you respond to the slash from space." After that, he walked towards Su-mu, preparing to fulfill his promise just now, twisting off Su-mu's limbs and sending them to Colonel Stryker. As for Su-mu's death, it was impossible for Colonel Stryker to blame him. Colonel Stryker hated mutants so much, how could he be angry because of Tool's death? On the rooftop nearby, 2 groups of people were confronting each other. One side is Cyclops and Storm from the X-Men, while the other side is Red Tank and Mystique from the Brotherhood of Mutants. The two of them met when they were looking for Su-mu and had a dispute. Cyclops put his hand on his glasses, took them off at any time, and used laser rays from different latitudes to attack the two red tanks. He said coldly, "Su-mu is the fresh blood of mutants and must not be brainwashed by you." Mystique stood behind the red tank, avoiding the rays that might strike at any time. Upon hearing what Cyclops said, she retorted, "Mutants are a better race. Humans are just ants. Excellent mutants like Su-mu should join the Brotherhood. We will lead him to the right path. As the right path to destroy like a terrorist." Just as the atmosphere was getting more and more anxious, Storm Girl suddenly broke the current situation. "Look, Su-mu's condition doesn't seem to be very good." Everyone present was attracted by Storm Girl's words. The purpose of their trip was to win over Su-mu. If something happened to Su-mu, then the operation would end in failure. They looked down and saw Su-mu being almost cut in half by the space blade. What? Unexpectedly, just when they had a dispute, their target was about to be killed by Stryker's men. Even if Su-mu's performance did not meet their expectations, the mutants they wanted to win over would soon be killed, which they couldn't bear. Cyclops was ready to take off his glasses. Storm Girl's hair began to float, her pupils gradually turned white, and the red tank made a charging gesture. They must first save the strong man before he kills Su-mu. Although this kind of injury is serious, there are also mutants with healing abilities among mutants. Coupled with the power of technology, as long as the treatment is timely, it can still be cured. However, the scene that happened next made them stop their movements and looked at the severely injured Su-mu in shock. He actually has other mutant abilities. The strong man walked towards Su-mu slowly with a mocking look on his face. He prepared to break Su-mu's limbs and then send them to Colonel Stryker. Colonel Stryker imprisoned a large number of mutants, many of whom had healing abilities. As long as Su-mu was still breathing, he could be revived. As for dying in the middle, then just die. What Colonel Stryker wants are mutants stronger than him, and the mutants defeated by him are worthless at all. However, he only walked a few steps before he stopped, pointing his finger at Su-mu in great shock. You, how is it possible? Why has your injury recovered? The distance was just a little far away, and the dust raised by the collapsed wall blocked the line of sight to a certain extent, so the strong man did not see Su-mu's specific situation. At this time, he walked out of the smoke and came not far from Su-mu. He happened to see the injury on Su-mu's waist that almost cut him in half, recovering at an extremely fast speed. By the time he realized he had stopped, the last of his injuries had just healed completely. He looked at the white-haired man in front of him in disbelief. His terrifying space defense ability, fearsome attack ability like a black hole, good physical fitness, and extremely strong self-healing ability at this time. Is this really a mutant? Even Magneto and Professor X are not so powerful. Could it be, he is the legendary 5th-level mutant? The situation suddenly reversed. In the excited eyes of Cyclops and many other mutants, in the fearful eyes of a large number of army soldiers, and in the fearful eyes of the strong men, Su-mu grinned again. I regretted it. Even if you cry and apologize now, I will not spare your life. You. The strong man looked at Su-mu, but for a moment he didn't dare to step forward. His trump card is the dwarf space attack, which is the only ability that can break through 9527's defense. And once this ability fails, he will no longer be 9527's opponent. He immediately lifted one hand of the dwarf on his shoulder, put it in front of him, and yelled at him. Release the space blade again quickly and kill him. The space blade obviously consumed a lot of energy for the dwarf. After just using it once, his whole body trembled and his face turned pale. However, under the pressure of the strong man, the dwarf still released the space blade towards Su-mu again. The dwarf's space blade consumed a lot of energy, but it was also very powerful and its speed was amazing. This time, Su-mu had been prepared, but he was still hit by it. One arm and shoulder were almost cut off. But with the help of the reversal technique, his injuries were recovering at a very fast speed. This time, the strong man saw the whole process of Su-mu's injury recovery. Seeing Su-mu recover from a fatal injury in just a dozen seconds, he no longer had the will to fight. He immediately threw the dwarf in his hand towards Su-mu, fled far away, and ordered the soldiers around him. Stop him for me. The strong man no longer had any courage to face Su Mu, so he chose to run away. Although he would be severely punished by Colonel Stryker if he failed the mission, there was still a chance of survival, which was better than facing the monster in front of him. Looking at the dwarf flying towards him, Su Mu used his 6 eyes to observe that he could no longer release the space blade. So he stretched out his hands, and under the desperate gaze of the dwarf, the terrifying pressure completely tore his body apart, and a large amount of blood splashed and fell on the ground, and he could not even scream. But there was no blood on Su Mu's body. The blood that splashed on him floated in the air, just like the bullets floating around, and could not get close to him at all. Then Su Mu looked in the direction of the strong man. A large number of fully armed troops were shooting at him frantically, and the strong man had already run far away. If he ignored it, then the strong man would definitely escape, so he made a decision. He stretched out his index finger, pointed it in the direction of the strong man, and then said lightly, "Spell reversal, huh." Quote, the forward rotation of the Kang technique can create a strong gravitational force, with a limit of negative infinity. By reversing the technique, the cursed power, which is originally negative energy, is converted into positive energy cursed power, which not only allows Su Mu to use cursed power to heal himself, but also can inject positive cursed power into the previous technique to obtain the opposite effect. The forward rotation of the Kang technique can create negative infinity attraction, so the opposite effect is positive infinity repulsion, which is the reversed technique, he. After obtaining the reversed technique, Su Mu can theoretically release the reversed technique, he, but he is different from Gojo Satoru. He has not been trained since childhood to master the cursed power, and his mastery of the technique is limited to the experience of template transmission. With the template fusion degree of only 23%, the experience he inherited is far from the level of being able to release the reversed technique, he. At this time, releasing the reversed technique, he, depends entirely on his own control, but with the help of the 6 eyes, he does not think he will fail. The negative cursed power in the body is multiplied to obtain positive cursed power, and then flows according to the cursed power flow method of the forward rotation of the Kang technique. At the moment when Su Mu finished speaking, a tiny black-red singularity formed in front of his slender index finger. The spell power continued to be infused, and the singularity slowly expanded under Su Mu's strenuous control. When it was about to be fully formed, the structure of the singularity suddenly became unstable. Seeing that the spell, Kang, was about to fail, Su Mu's mouth cracked into a hideous arc, and then he used the absolute control of energy through the 6 eyes and energy absorption to forcibly control the singularity. Crack, black-red lightning continued to burst out from the singularity in all directions. The ground was hit by lightning and immediately shattered, forming a gully several meters deep and dozens of meters long. The soldiers around were hit by lightning, and their bodies were immediately shattered under the twisted gravity, turning into a piece of bloody flesh residue. Even the caster Su Mu was no exception. The terrifying black-red gravitational lightning affected his body. The body strengthened by the spell power and energy absorption immediately collapsed gradually, and then quickly recovered under the effect of the reversal spell. Just when Su Mu's energy was almost exhausted and he was about to give up, the black-red singularity in front of his index finger finally stabilized and formed a black-red singularity the size of a mung bean. The strong man who had already run 1,000 meters ahead suddenly felt an instinctive fear. He turned around and looked back. His strong eyesight allowed him to clearly see the amazing scene in the distance. Everything around the terrifying man was collapsing, even his own body was no exception, but even so, a cold smile still appeared on the corner of his mouth. Among the stones that were suspended in the air and were constantly being annihilated, on the bodies of a large number of dead soldiers around, and when the blood left on his forehead dyed his mysterious blue eyes red, a smile from the heart bloomed on his face. Boom! The terrifying black-red singularity, accompanied by black-red lightning that splashed due to instability, flew towards him at a high speed. The speed was so fast that even his supervision could not catch it. When he reacted, the terrifying black-red singularity had already arrived in front of him. The strong man subconsciously used his palm to block it, but under the powerful repulsive force released by the reversal of the technique, it had no effect at all. He could only watch as the black-red singularity shattered his arm, crushed his bones into powder bit by bit, and then passed through his chest and continued to fly backwards. Boom. After passing through the chest of the strong man, the black-red singularity continued to fly backwards for dozens of meters, and finally formed a gully more than 1,000 meters long, and finally stopped. The strong man's body was completely shattered and completely dead. The time of the whole scene seemed to freeze. Except for Su-mu, who was panting heavily, everything else was motionless. Everyone looked at the terrifying white-haired man in shock. Is this really something that humans can do? After a short rest, Su-mu walked towards the fully armed soldiers who were still alive in front. Obviously one side was fully armed, and the other side was covered in blood, but it was the fully armed side that kept retreating. So, the SHIELD agents who had just arrived around, the X-Men who were watching the battle, the Brotherhood members, and other civilians who failed to evacuate, all saw the absurd scene in front of them. The white-haired man with blood all over his body raised his head, opened his arms and laughed, and then his injuries recovered quickly. He took a step forward, and the well-trained soldiers took a step back, and so on, repeatedly. In the process, some soldiers even stepped on broken stones, tripped to the ground, and were hit on the head by stones, but he still did not dare to make a sound, for fear of attracting the attention of the man. But no one would laugh at him, because no one dared to show themselves in front of the terrifying white-haired man. Until the white-haired man slowly disappeared around the corner step by step, everyone at the scene began to breathe again, gasping for air, even the mutants were no exception. At this time, members of all forces had only one idea. Report this matter and win over Su-mu to join their organization. He can already be confirmed as a newly born 5th-level mutant. No matter which force he joins, he will destroy the current balance. In a store, a middle-aged man gasped and covered the camera in his hand tightly. He took pictures of everything that just happened. Eddie Brock believed that what just happened was definitely the most explosive news this year. Whether it is a terrorist attack in Manhattan, the most prosperous district in New York, causing the death of many civilians, or a fight between mutants, or the powerful mutant ability of the terrifying White Devil, it will cause an earthquake in the news industry. Su-mu turned the corner and immediately used the remaining energy to pull open the manhole cover and jump down. Entering the sewer, he moved forward quickly, and the broken wounds on his body were still bleeding during the movement. The consumption of the reversal of the technique, was more than he thought, especially when he forcibly released it, the consumption increased exponentially. Just using it once, it almost consumed all the energy in his body. If he hadn't used the remaining energy to recover some of his injuries and create the illusion that he still had some strength left, then facing many fully armed soldiers would really be dangerous. The energy absorption of level 2 could not allow him to ignore the guns when he lost the unlimited technique. Just as Su-mu continued to walk forward, Luyan suddenly caught something, but because of the exhaustion of energy, he could not immediately open the unlimited technique, but he tried his best to dodge and still avoided the next attack. A dagger brushed Su-mu's body and flew out, piercing the cement floor of the sewer. Su-mu turned around and saw a man in a strange tights standing in front of him, with 4 daggers between his fingers. It was obvious that the daggers just now were his work. Looking at the strange tights on the man in front of him and the strange bullseye on his forehead, Su-mu immediately recognized his identity, Bullseye. The dagger just now was obviously thrown by him. Su-mu immediately remembered Bullseye's identity. He served Jin Bin in many versions. The reason why he sneaked into him at this time must also be because of Jin Bin's order. If it were anyone else, even other superhumans would use his superb skills to pierce the body with a dagger, but he was different. Even if the energy was almost exhausted at this time, he could still use his 6 eyes to catch the dagger's attack. However, who gave him the confidence? You actually think that he, a mortal with mastery of skills, can assassinate him? Bullseye looked at the white-haired man in front of him. He was very strong, stronger than expected. The part he was aiming at just now was the white-haired man's head, but even though he was clearly exhausted at this time, he still dodged the dagger he threw. You must know that the dagger he uses is partially filled with adamantium alloy. This alloy is extremely hard and can destroy almost anything. With the help of adamantium alloy, the dagger he throws is even close to the speed of sound. The white-haired man in front of me can be avoided. He obviously has other abilities besides spatial ability, a super physique, or other means. If the man in front of him was still in peak condition, he wouldn't even dare to get close, but now, it's completely different. It seems that the horrific attack just unleashed has severely depleted you, and even your reaction ability has been greatly weakened. If you were in your heyday, I would definitely not be your opponent, but now. Ha ha ha, it is really a pleasure to kill a strong man with my own hands. Quote. Bullseye's whole body trembled with excitement. As a top killer, how could there be anything more pleasurable than killing a powerful man? But what surprised him was that the man in front of him didn't panic at all, as if the threat from him didn't exist at all. It's like, even a sickly tiger can still kill a provoking cat. Moreover, the gap between them is even greater than the gap between tigers and cats. He immediately had an ominous premonition and immediately threw the adamantium dagger in his hand, but most of them were avoided by the man in front of him. However, a dagger hit the man, which made him relax a little. At this time, he no longer looks as invincible as before. Su Mu used the remaining energy to strengthen his body and avoid attacks. Through his 6 eyes, he immediately noticed the special material of the dagger, and understood that it was this incredibly hard dagger that allowed Bullseye to easily break through his defense. But he still didn't panic at all. How dare a mortal dare to provoke a god? Not everyone is Iron Man. He asked calmly. You were sent by Kingpin to assassinate me, right? Bullseye didn't answer, but instead threw the dagger faster, and even took out a pistol to shoot at him, but he was caught by 6 eyes, and then easily dodged. Even if Bullseye didn't answer, Su Mu still observed the details of his body through his 6 eyes and confirmed his guess. Then he continued. If you tell me Jin Bin's location, then I will spare your life, how about that? But Bullseye still didn't answer, and even attacked more quickly, and laughed. You can't protect yourself now, but you still want to spare my life, just go to hell. After saying that, he took out a rocket launcher from nowhere and shot at Su Mu. When the rocket launcher exploded in front of Su Mu, and the huge flames engulfed Su Mu, he breathed a sigh of relief. He should be dead. I didn't expect that the white-haired man would be so difficult to deal with even if he was seriously exhausted. Then he showed an excited smile, and it gave him great pleasure to kill the strong man. You seem happy. Think this is the end. Suddenly, the sound from the fire made the smile on his face freeze. He suddenly heard the sound of the wall breaking, and then the demon's voice sounded again. I'll give you one last chance. Tell me Jin Bin's location, and I'll make your death a painless one. He looked in Su Mu's direction in disbelief. The smoke dissipated, and the man appeared in front of him intact. At this time, a large amount of shrapnel was floating in front of him, and like the previous bullets, it was unable to get close to him. And he stretched one hand into the stone wall of the sewer. The dim lights around him became even dimmer. At the same time, the injuries on the white-haired man were recovering quickly. Bullseye immediately realized that he was absorbing electrical energy. You have other mutant abilities. Realizing this situation, he immediately ran away with all his strength. He actually has other mutant abilities, and he can also absorb energy that can quickly restore energy, so who is still his opponent? Kingpin, I won't take this order. Whoever wants to die will do it. Quote. However, the terrifying attraction came from behind, and even though his physical fitness far exceeded that of ordinary people, he still had no power to resist. Under Bullseye's desperate gaze, he floated in front of Su Mu, and then his limbs were brutally torn apart by the terrifying gravity, leaving him no longer able to resist. The moment the rocket launcher flew in, Su Mu immediately used the kinetic energy of the flying knife and the energy supplemented by sunlight to perform an unlimited technique. Then he strengthened his body, stretched out his arms to penetrate the wall, grabbed the wires and cables inside, and absorbed the electrical energy. A large amount of electric energy was absorbed, the reversal technique and the unlimited technique were reactivated, and he returned to his prime state again. The adamantium alloy dagger on his body was squeezed out by the growing flesh and blood and fell to the ground. The injuries on his body recovered in an instant. Seeing Bullseye escape, Su Mu smiled brightly, then stretched out her fingers to hold them slightly, and said with a smile. All things are attracted by heaven. After attracting Bullseye and twisting his limbs into twists, Su Mu asked again. How's it going? What do you think? Just tell me and I'll let you die a happy death. Bullseye looked at the white demon in front of him, and the delicate blue eyes under the white eyelashes looked at him mockingly. For some reason, he saw a strange black scarlet color in those beautiful eyes. After completely tearing Bullseye's twisted body apart, leaving only some adamantium alloy skeletons, Sumyu finally confirmed that he did not know Jinbin's location. P.S. Bullseye has some adamantium alloy bones implanted in his body. Kingpin was an extremely cautious person. His residence was different every day, and even his closest confidants did not know the specific itinerary for the next day. Sumyu put his hands in his pockets and walked slowly forward. The blood and shrapnel floating behind him quickly fell to the ground. Although it is a pity that the exact location of Kingpin cannot be known, it does not matter. As the Six Eyes continue to be upgraded, the observable area and perspective capabilities will continue to increase. When his observation range covers the entire New York City, he can easily crush him to death. The cables in the sewer wall were constantly being pulled out under the control of gravity, floating around Sumyu for him to absorb energy. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Energy absorption LV2 233 300ths. It can absorb most of the energy, and the absorption speed is the same as the upper limit of energy storage. Energy absorption is about to reach LV3, and this is also his first skill to reach LV3. What changes will happen to the skills after level 3? Will there be an unknown transformation? In addition to energy absorption, Luyan is also gaining experience at an extremely fast rate. These two skills are permanent, consume the least, and are also the easiest to upgrade. While Sumyu continued to absorb energy, practice skills, and strengthen herself, the outside world also underwent earth-shaking changes. First, Stark, who had been missing for 2 months, returned and immediately announced the closure of the weapons development department, causing Stark Industries' shares to shrink significantly and causing an uproar. Secondly, a terrifying green-skinned monster appeared at Culver University. The military went to arrest it, but it was no match for the green-skinned monster. After being wantonly destroyed by the green-skinned monster, it left in style. But these two pieces of news should have attracted attention. Even if they should have been the headlines in any newspaper issue, they were squeezed out by another piece of news. Because this news has refreshed people's understanding of mutants. On this day, they thought about the fear of being dominated by mutants. This news was completed alone by a reporter named Eddie Brock of Global Daily. According to him, he was at the scene and witnessed the battle between two powerful mutants, and saw the White Devil almost unresolvable mutant abilities and a strong sense of oppression. The mutant who has the ability to strengthen his body is already strong enough. I believe he is not much inferior to the green-skinned monster. However, he has no power to fight back against the White Devil. So writes Mr. Eddie Brock, who explained the concept of mutant levels in detail in the news and stated that the White Devil is definitely a level 5 mutant. At the end of the news, Eddie Brock wrote, "That terrifying black singularity, even if it splashes around, is enough to tear everything apart, and if it hits it head-on, nothing can resist it. It can be clearly seen that the White Devil is not proficient in that ability, but this also means that he has more room for growth. If he fully adapts, then he will be a more terrifying existence than Magneto." Quote. After this report was published, it immediately spread rapidly in society. Some people said, "Didn't the government say that mutants are not a threat? Why do such powerful mutants exist?" Some people are filled with fear. If he continues to be strong, he can easily kill all humans. The government must arrest him as soon as possible. There are even worshippers of the White Devil. He is God. He is an angel who came to the world, and we should worship him as our Lord. There are also voices that are different from these mainstream voices. They are oppressed mutants. They use various hidden IPs to speak on major social platforms. He is the savior of mutants and the leader of mutants. The government has been oppressing mutants indiscriminately and using mutants to conduct inhumane experiments. The leader will lead us to resist. Quote. Yes, we will always follow him. In a hidden luxurious room in Hell's Kitchen, Jin Bin looked at the newspaper in front of him with an ugly expression, focusing on the terrifying black singularity and the kilometer-long terrifying ravine it left behind. Don't you mean he's just an ordinary mutant? Why is it so strong? As time passed, he became increasingly uneasy because Bullseye never returned. Kingpin didn't rest for a whole day, sitting in a chair and waiting until dawn broke and the sky turned white. He was finally sure that Bullseye had completely failed and was even dead. After sitting on the throne of the Underground Emperor for decades, Jin had not experienced this feeling for an unknown amount of time, this feeling of powerlessness and fear. Even if he is the Emperor, he is still just a mortal. How can he resist the gods? Tens of thousands of meters above the ground, inside a huge aircraft carrier. Nick Fury stared at the information in front of him, motionless. Coulson stood aside carefully. The boss had maintained this posture for a long time. Suddenly, Nick Fury closed the document, raised his head, and looked at Coulson with sharp eyes. Agent Coulson, use all means to find him and win him over. He will be the most important pillar of the Avengers plan. Yes, sir. A simulated breeze blew through the cabin, lifting a corner of the file to reveal several high-definition photos. The azure black hole, the black-red singularity, the mysterious space defense, and finally the white devil that laughs wildly. After Coulson left, Nick Fury's voice sounded in the room again, such a dangerous mutant must be monitored by S.H.I.E.L.D. In the hidden office, you can occasionally hear faint screams coming from the outside world. They are the miserable and painful wails of the mutants who were experimented on in the laboratory. Colonel Stryker looked at the information in his hand and his face turned livid. Gather more power and catch this mutant fool. In a remote location in New York, the two most powerful mutant forces currently gather. If the government knows about the secret meeting between the X-Men and the Brotherhood of Mutants, it will definitely increase the threat level of the X-Men by several levels. Magneto, wearing a strange helmet, and Professor X in a wheelchair looked at each other across the conference table. Magneto was the first to say, "Charles, if we can master his power, then in time we will definitely be able to kill all humans, and then we will create a peaceful world where only we mutants exist." After hearing what Magneto said, Professor X shook his head and said to Magneto with a serious face, "Eric, you are too radical. Humans and mutants can definitely coexist peacefully." "Peace? Are you talking about the government's crazy persecution of mutants and the cruel experiments that are being carried out all the time? I will make them change." Hearing the words of his former friend, Magneto looked at him disappointedly. "You are too naive. Blood must be repaid with more blood." The members of the Brotherhood of Mutants behind him looked at Magneto with admiration, the leader who led them to resist. "Your idea is wrong. That's just a small number of people. You can't deny all of humanity because of a part of the sin." Many X-Men members, like Professor X, looked at Magneto seriously. Only the kind Professor X can help mutants achieve a better future. With no luck, Magneto stood up angrily and walked towards the door. Seeing this, many members of the Brotherhood of Mutants behind him followed. "I will find him and take him to the right path. Eric, I will stop you. Charles, you will regret it." Sumu didn't know what happened in the outside world. He was currently planning his future. Unlocking the template requires energy, and using skills requires energy. In the final analysis, the energy is too little. If you only rely on absorbing electrical energy, it will not last long, and it may be discovered by the authorities. So the most important thing at present is to find a stable source of energy. Regarding the Infinity Stones, he is too weak at this time, and the risk of obtaining the Infinity Stones is too great, so there is only one choice at present. Arc Reactor. At the same time, after absorbing electrical energy through energy absorption for a long time, the system prompts again. "Congratulations, energy absorption upgrade. Do you have any recommendations for character templates? It is best to have a character with more skills, handsome special effects, and well-known characters." Chapter 11. Energy Absorption Experience +1. Energy Absorption Experience +1. Energy Absorption Experience +1. Congratulations, energy absorption has been upgraded. Energy Absorption LV3 1/1000th can absorb most of the energy, with a high absorption speed and energy storage limit. After the energy absorption was upgraded, Sumu immediately felt a huge change in energy absorption. First, the types of energy that can be absorbed have increased. Nuclear energy that could not be absorbed before, and even magic energy, can now be absorbed. In addition, the speed of energy absorption has also become faster, at least 3 times faster than before. And the energy storage limit has also increased 3 times more than before. At this time, he can at least maintain the unlimited spell for half an hour, using more than 6 full-strength spell forward, Kang, or 3 times the lowest power spell reversal, he. From the information obtained from the character template, it is known that the minimum power of the spell reversal, he, is at least twice the maximum power of the spell forward, Kang. This not only represents more terrifying consumption, but also more amazing lethality. However, Su Mu knew that he was lucky to successfully perform the reversal technique, before, and he might not be able to perform it successfully again. Moreover, the previous reversal technique, was not complete, and a large amount of energy was dissipated. If the reversal technique, of that type was used, the energy would probably be exhausted after 2 times. Therefore, it is best not to use the reversal technique, before gaining experience and usage of the reversal technique, through the character template. Consumption is secondary. If the uncontrolled dissipated energy hits the brain, it will be bad. The current reversal technique has not yet reached the level of regeneration after losing the brain. In addition to the increase in energy reserves, the acceleration of energy absorption speed is also of great help to Su Mu. If it goes as expected, he can now withstand the shooting of small caliber rifles and completely absorb the kinetic energy of bullets. In this way, Su Mu is not afraid of sneak attacks when the unlimited technique is not activated. Unfortunately, the level of the unlimited technique and the reversal technique is too low, and it is unknown to what level to reach the level of Gojo Satoru. That is, when the reversal technique is constantly repairing the brain, the unlimited technique can be maintained for a long time, and it can automatically select threatening targets. And if the skill level is improved again on this basis, then even the poison attacks that Gojo Satoru cannot select can be selected by itself, and even space attacks can be resisted. With the continuous improvement of skills, he will surpass Gojo Satoru and reach a realm that Gojo Satoru has never reached. Imagining the future, Su Mu was excited and even looked forward to activating the character template with the ability to jump to the plane in the future and go to the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. At that time, using the same moves to defeat the invincible Gojo Satoru would be a very interesting thing. Continue to absorb electrical energy, replenish the energy in the body, and push the template fusion degree to 27%, and then leave from the sewer. The exit of the sewer is located in a remote alley. Just when Su Mu was about to go to buy a new set of clothes, he suddenly saw a girl who was looking at him in shock. The girl had green hair and looked dirty, weak and helpless. Of course, this is through the naked eye observation. If you observe from the perspective of 6 eyes, you can find the huge green energy hidden in her body and the iron objects around her that are ready to move. Su Mu immediately recognized the identity of the girl, Polaris. Polaris is the daughter of Magneto, whose real name is Lorna Dane. She has the power to control magnetism. At her peak, she can even control the Earth's magnetic field. She is a powerful mutant who is not inferior to Magneto. I didn't expect to meet her here. Su Mu was a little surprised about this, but when he thought that this universe was not any universe he knew, but an unknown parallel universe, he immediately felt that it was not surprising. Marvel's various universes have too many versions. No matter what happens, it is not strange. Su Mu didn't intend to pay attention to Polaris, but Polaris obviously would not let him go. She recognized the man in front of her, who was called the most powerful mutant in the world by the media, the biggest threat to the world, and the white-haired devil. He was also called the savior and leader by mutants. No matter what the name is, it means that the man in front of him is extremely powerful, even more powerful than his father, Magneto. Seeing Su Mu leaving, she subconsciously wanted to use her ability to stop him. She used her ability to unscrew the metal pipe fixed on the wall and flew towards Su Mu, trying to block him in front of him. But Polaris looked at the scene in front of her in great shock. She saw that the metal she controlled could no longer be manipulated when approaching the man in front of her. It just stopped behind the man and could not move forward at all. But she was not disappointed, but even happier. The stronger Su Mu was, the more likely he would lead the mutants to be liberated from human oppression. She just smiled and wanted to say something to Su Mu, but the smile on her face froze immediately. Su Mu turned his head slowly, and there was no emotion in his azure eyes. Being stared at by the azure eyes like the god of death, Polaris immediately felt a huge pressure, as if the god of death had placed the sickle of harvesting souls on her neck, ready to harvest her soul at any time. Then she heard a cold voice coming from the front. "Live well, isn't it good?" After hearing this death-like whisper, Polaris shuddered violently, came back to his senses from his trance, and immediately said, I have no ill will towards you, I just want to follow you and fight against the human government with you. But Su Mu did not respond, and walked slowly towards Polaris. The slow steps gave Polaris extremely strong pressure, as if the irresistible force was pushing her into the abyss of death. Under the fatal threat, she subconsciously used her ability to control a large amount of metal to attack Su Mu. But all these metals fell in front of Su Mu and could not move forward at all. It was not until this time that she understood the weight of the white-haired demon. The white-haired demon was completely different from the mutants she had known before. It was a terrifying force of another dimension. Even if Polaris used all her strength to stop Su Mu from approaching and wanted to stop the approach of death, it did not work. Then, she was forced into a corner by Su Mu, and the strong pressure pressed her against the wall, unable to move. Su Mu used energy to strengthen his body, ignored Polaris in front of him, clenched his fingers deeply into the largest metal pipe, and then threw it forward. The metal pipe was given huge kinetic energy by the seemingly thin arm, and it sank deeply into the hard wall, right next to Polaris's ear. Beautiful lady, this is a warning. Your luck will not be so good next time. Then he gently slid his index finger, and the floating metal around ignored Polaris's manipulation, sank into the wall around her, and wrapped her in it. Looking at the white-haired man who yawned and walked away slowly with long legs as when he came, Polaris mustered up the courage and then shouted loudly. You are so strong, you can do a lot of things, you can save mutants, why don't you do it? After a while, just when she thought she was ignored, she heard a nonchalant voice. What does their suffering have to do with me? The white-haired demon in front turned around, revealing a charming profile and deep blue eyes, and smiled. Don't kidnap me, because I have no morals. Ignoring Polaris anymore, Su Mu put on her sunglasses and walked out of the street. As soon as he walked onto the street, he found himself being pointed at by others and heard the discussions of passers-by around him. He has white hair and wears sunglasses. He can't be a white-haired devil, right? The fellow passerby shook his head and said, It's probably an imitator. How could a random passerby be the white-haired devil? Su Mu was a little confused. What was the white-haired devil? Then he saw the big screen on the side of the street. After watching it for a while, he immediately understood something. Is he famous? On the big screen, a man in his 30s was talking. At that time, I was hiding in a nearby store, only 10 meters away from the white-haired demon, and witnessed his battle with another mutant. I'm sure he is definitely more powerful than Magneto and is the most powerful mutant in the world today. Quote. ? Several black lines immediately appeared on Su Mu's forehead. What happened to this reporter? Although he will definitely become the strongest mutant in the future, it is still in the preliminary stage, and he is not the most powerful mutant now. Not to mention that the unlimited spells cannot withstand mental attacks at this time, the Dark Phoenix alone is far stronger than him. At this time, he is described as the strongest mutant. How can he be allowed to develop silently? Looking at the name tag below the man, it read the following letters, Eddie Brock. Su Mu felt that the name was somewhat familiar. After thinking about it carefully, she finally remembered. Isn't this Venom? Okay, cute little thing, I will love you very much when we meet again in the future. Then Su Mu ignored Eddie Brock and looked towards the tallest building in Manhattan. That is one of the most famous buildings in the Marvel world, Stark Tower. If you want to get the Arc Reactor, you must contact Tony Stark, so going directly to Stark Tower is definitely the fastest option. It just so happens that Tony Stark has just returned and is about to have a conflict with Obadiah Stane. Saving his life during the conflict should be worth an Arc Reactor, right? Of course, if Tony Stark still refuses to hand over the Arc Reactor, then he already has it. Su Mu thought so. Su Mu put on the hood of her white sweatshirt and walked slowly towards Stark Building. Around him, the light was slightly dim, and all kinds of energy that could not be observed by ordinary people were continuously poured into his body under the precise control of the second level 6 eyes and the third level energy absorption. Although absorption is slower than direct contact with energy, it is better than lasting. This not only greatly improves his combat endurance, but also increases the efficiency of energy collection. The system beeps continuously. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. 6 eyes experience +1. 6 eyes experience +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Stark Tower is located on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. It is the tallest building in the neighborhood. Its duckbill-like top is very eye-catching and fits Tony Stark's flamboyant character. Arriving under the Stark building, it was getting late. Su-Mu walked towards the Stark gate, but was stopped by several security guards. These security guards stopped him and asked, "Hello, sir, please show me your ID." Su-Mu naturally did not have a certificate. Although he knew that the security guards would not let him pass, he still said honestly, "I have something important to discuss with Tony Stark, and I ask you to go and notify him." Sure enough, after hearing Su-Mu's words, several security guards were stunned, and then looked at each other in confusion. They wanted to laugh, but the top professionalism in the industry did not make them laugh out loud. Several security guards suppressed their laughter and said, "Sir, today is not April Fool's Day, it's not funny." Knowing that this would happen a long time ago, Su-Mu was a little irritated, rubbed her silky white hair, and then continued. "Everyone, this is not a joke." Seeing that Su-Mu did not leave, but continued to entangle him, the faces of many security guards gradually became serious, obviously treating him as a bad element who came to cause trouble. Just when Su-Mu was about to show some special abilities and persuade these security guards, several cars stopped, and then a beautiful figure walked out first, followed by several men in black with cold temperaments. They saw the two parties confronting each other in front of the building, but they didn't pay attention. Instead, they walked directly into the building and walked in a hurry. Clearly they have more important things to do. Su-Mu recognized the leading woman immediately. She had long blonde hair and was wearing a black skirt. Who was it if it wasn't Little Pepper? Looks like it's time for my hero to save the hero soon. Su-Mu stretched out 2 fingers, rubbed his chin, and thought. Then he looked at the security guards who were slowly approaching him, and slowly took off the round sunglasses on the high bridge of his nose. Many security guards immediately stopped. They looked at the delicate eyes that emitted azure aura before them, and the most popular news recently slowly emerged in their minds. White-haired devil. The moment before they became unconscious, they saw the man in front of them slightly hooking up the corners of his mouth and saying softly, "I'm sorry everyone, please take a rest for a while." Pepper led many agents and walked quickly towards the interior of the building. After Agent Coulson used a mini-bomb to destroy the door lock, several people continued to move toward the interior of Area 16. The light inside Area 16 was very dim, filled with a large number of mechanical equipment, multiple iron chains hanging from the ceiling, and a huge rough metal armor placed in a corner. Looking at the steel armor, Coulson said to Pepper next to him, "It seems that you are right, he is making armor." The few people continued to go deeper, and Pepper was attracted by the screens full of complex data around her, and then stopped in front of dozens of chains. Just when she wanted to move forward, suddenly, 2 huge eyes emitting pale light lit up from the darkness. "Ah!" The shrill scream destroyed the peace of the night. Pepper fled outside, and the huge steel armor several meters high behind her was chasing her madly. Seeing this situation, several agents subconsciously shot at Iron Overlord with guns, but were immediately flattened by the terrifying steel fist. In the blink of an eye, only Coulson and Pepper survived among the few people who came to capture Obadiah Stane. Pepper passed through a narrow door, and the huge Iron Overlord was stuck by the solid concrete wall, so she escaped. Just as she was passing through the circular Arc Reactor and trying to escape from Stark Tower, she suddenly saw something out of the corner of her eye. Countless terrifying white currents flowed out of the Arc Reactor, emitting the piercing sound of thousands of birds, and enveloped a handsome white-haired man. Wrapped in such a terrifying current, the white-haired man was not hurt at all, but opened his arms, his delicate blue eyes were full of joy. More. Seeing the incredible scene in front of her, Pepper subconsciously stopped, and even forgot to escape temporarily. After getting rid of several dedicated security guards, Su-Mu slowly walked towards the interior of Stark Tower, preparing to go and see the birth of the super-villain Iron Overlord. Just then, a huge arc caught his attention. From the perspective of Liu Yan, terrifying energy jumped in front of him, like a beautiful cake, waiting for him to taste. He immediately put the Iron Overlord behind him. The Iron Overlord was not as important as energy. Through the meticulous manipulation of the 6 eyes, a large amount of electrical energy escaped from the giant arc reactor, and was gradually absorbed by Su-mu. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. Since the energy absorption was increased to LV3, it was overloaded for the first time, absorbing electric energy like crazy. Put all the energy points into the character template, and the fusion level will jump almost every few minutes. Template integration, 28%. Template integration, 29%. Template fusion, 30%. When the fusion degree reached 30%, many memories immediately emerged in Su-mu's mind. It was an advanced manipulation method of curse power, Black Flash. In the world of spell return, when physical strikes and spell impacts hit almost simultaneously, and the error is within 0.000001 seconds, space distortion will occur. At that time, the power of the attack will be the normal 2.5 power. This is a scalable skill that increases in power as your strength increases. Due to the difficult conditions of Black Flash, no warlock can use Black Flash 100%. Therefore, this amazingly powerful technique can only be performed through luck. However, Su-mu is different. He has 6 eyes and energy absorption, 2 extraordinary abilities that belong to different worlds. As his skill level increases, his control over energy will be much higher than Gojo Satoru. It is very likely that he will be able to play Black Flash 100% in the future. At that time, by strengthening his body through energy absorption and mantra manipulation, Su-mu could even fight the Hulk hand-to-hand. While Su-mu was continuously absorbing energy, he suddenly heard a cry of surprise from behind him. When he saw it again, it turned out to be little Pepper who had escaped. However, for some reason, when he turned to look at Pepper, Pepper let out a piercing scream, her legs were shaking, and she rolled out of the door of Stark Tower. Su-mu stood there, a little confused, and slowly suppressed the crazy but joyful smile on his face, and stopped absorbing electric energy, allowing the surrounding room that was ravaged by electric energy to rest for a while. He had deep self-doubt and said, "Do I look scary?" Pepper escaped from the Stark building and immediately looked back. She was relieved to see that the terrifying white-haired demon was not chasing her. She originally thought that most of the news reports were exaggerated news, but after meeting the white-haired demon, she realized that those reports were not true, and the reality was even more perverted than the news. The white-haired devil is so scary. Thinking of the crazy smile just now and the white-haired figure in the terrifying current, little Pepper shuddered again. Pepper. At this moment, Tony's voice came to Pepper's ears. When Tony wanted to say something else, she immediately said, "Tony, the white-haired devil is here too." Tony Stark is full of doubts, isn't it, Obadiah? Why did he suddenly turn into a white-haired demon? But there was no time for him to think about it, because there was a scream from Pepper, and it was obvious that she was in danger. Tony Stark once again increased his propulsion, his speed increased again, and finally in a few seconds, he saw Iron Overlord who was targeting Pepper with a weapon. Without any hesitation, he withstood the hail of gunfire and directly knocked the Iron Overlord away, crashing through numerous walls until he fell into a road. The two continued to fight on the road, and Tony Stark was completely at a disadvantage. Even if he later led Iron Overlord to a high altitude and used the icing phenomenon at high altitude to make him fall, he could not kill Iron Overlord. At the end, when Tony Stark was about to ask Pepper to open all the circuits and detonate the Arc Reactor, he heard crisp footsteps from the side. Yeah, it would be a shame if such a powerful energy source was destroyed. The sudden sound caused Tony Stark and Iron Overlord to look in the direction of the source of the sound. Before the visitor made a sound, their investigation system didn't notice anything. They first saw a streak of white hair, followed by bright blue eyes that shone in the night sky, and a handsome face with a cynical smile. Then, they heard the mysterious white-haired man say to Tony Stark, "I killed Obadiah for you, how about you give me an arc reactor?" Tony Stark immediately ordered Jarvis, check his profile." Jarvis responded immediately. He should be the 5th-level mutant Su-mu who appeared in Manhattan a few days ago and fought with another mutant. At the same time, Jarvis called up Su-mu's detailed information and photos of various abilities on the projection in front of Tony Stark's eyes. Looking at the terrifying blue black hole and the strange red-black starting point, Tony Stark fell into confusion. Did the outside world change so drastically when he transformed the Mark II? After reading the information, Tony Stark did not hesitate and said directly to Su-Mu, "Make a deal." Obadiah witnessed the entire transaction between Su-Mu and Tony Stark. Although he did not believe that a human could have such amazing power, he did not want to cause any more trouble, so he said to Su-Mu, "White-haired demon, help me kill Tony. I will give you $100 million as a reward and give you 3 arc reactors." He looked at Su-Mu confidently, waiting for the white-haired demon in front of him to surrender to money. But something he did not expect happened. The white-haired demon showed a mocking smile on his face and grinned. Can you make an arc reactor?" Obadiah immediately stopped talking. He really could not make an arc reactor. He had only done it to deceive the mutant in front of him. He would kill him after the matter was over, and he would not even give the $100 million. Seeing that his plan was exposed, Obadiah sighed, and then said indifferently, "Young man, it is better not to be too smart." Suddenly, Obadiah immediately controlled Iron Overlord and used all his energy to attack Su-Mu quickly. He planned to kill the mutant who suddenly appeared directly. As for the information revealed in the video, how could humans have such powerful power? The dense ammunition and the huge steel fist came almost at the same time. Just when Tony Stark and Obadiah thought Su-Mu was dead, they saw a scene that shocked them. Whether it was the dense ammunition or the huge fist of Iron Overlord, they all stopped in front of Su-Mu and could not move forward. Then, they immediately saw that the mysterious mutant named Su-Mu waved his seemingly slender arm at the Iron Overlord who was much bigger than him. Boom! The terrifying black lightning broke out at the junction of the fist and the Iron Overlord. The huge Iron Overlord was hit by a mortal body, smashed through layers of walls, smashed large metal ornaments, and finally flew to the distant highway again and fell into the wall on one side of the road. Seeing this scene, Tony Stark swallowed subconsciously. The pictures in the report turned out to be not artificial intelligence synthesis, nor was it a fictitious report. The information recorded above turned out to be true. And compared with the facts, it is actually weakened. At least the content in the report did not say that the White Devil's power was so amazing that he could knock the Iron Overlord away with one punch. As the designer of steel armor, Tony can naturally judge the weight of Iron Overlord from its size. He can knock Iron Overlord away with one punch. Even the Mark III cannot do this. This is not a power that humans can possess. Looking at the seemingly slender arms of the White Devil, Tony Stark felt his ignorance for the first time. After knocking the Iron Overlord away with one punch, Su-Mu moved his palms and unexpectedly successfully used Black Flash in his first attack. This also proves his guess. He has more energy absorption ability than Gojo Satoru, and he has stronger control over energy. It is very likely that he will be able to release Black Flash 100% in the future. This also means that his attack will always be 2.5 times the original power. This is undoubtedly an extremely terrifying improvement. Ignoring Tony Stark who was dazed at the side, Su-Mu walked slowly towards the road, passed through the gap in the wall, walked through the road opened by the Iron Overlord body, and slowly came to the road. As he slowly approached, Iron Overlord was obviously aware of his approach, and dense ammunition and missiles were fired at him, but they were all blocked by the unlimited technique, preventing him from advancing even an inch. When he came to the side of the road, the passers-by had already reacted and stopped approaching. The road was now deserted except for Su-Mu who was walking slowly and Iron Overlord who was shooting continuously. Passers-by who were not afraid of death hid in the distance and watched the battle curiously, and some even took out their mobile phones to take pictures. When they saw Su-Mu slowly appearing, someone immediately recognized his identity. White Devil, why does he appear here? Is he fighting this steel giant? The steel monster was knocked away by him just now. How did he do it? Passers-by immediately became noisy and asked a series of questions. Coincidentally, in a Chevrolet in the distance, the excitement on the face of a middle-aged man was almost overflowing. He immediately took out professional camera equipment and shot in the direction of Su-Mu. Yes, this man is none other than the future Venom, Eddie Brock. At this time, he was extremely excited and kept praising the goddess of luck in his heart. He unexpectedly encountered the White Devil again. Previous news has made him a hot topic in the global daily news. Now if the scene of the White Devil fighting can be filmed again, then he will most likely be promoted and raised, and reach the peak of his life. In his camera, the White Devil slowly walked up to the steel giant, and the show finally began. Obadiah looked at the screen in front of him in shock. The system kept alerting. Alarm, alarm, the body's damage level is 36%. The body's damage level is 36%. Just that punch almost completely destroyed Iron Overlord chest armor. How is this possible? The metal used to assemble the Iron Overlord is 10 centimeters thick titanium alloy. Such a thick titanium alloy can even withstand large yield missiles without being penetrated. But now it was almost destroyed by a punch from a human. He is really a human. Obadiah regretted it so much at this time. The global daily report turned out to be true. If he had known this, he would never have a conflict with the White Devil, even if he promised $1 billion or $2 billion. But it was too late. At this time, we could only try our best to kill the White Devil. It is absolutely impossible to possess the weird defensive ability of the White Demon. Keeping the distance and constantly using up ammunition will definitely kill him. When Obadiah was about to put his idea into action, he suddenly discovered that the White Devil in front of him had disappeared without knowing it. When the system reminded him again, he saw the White Demon appearing in front of him, staring at him with cold eyes, clenching his right hand, and the blue unknown energy escaped. It was the attack that just knocked him away. He tried his best to dodge, but the distance was too close, and the Iron Overlord was too bulky to avoid the White Devil's next attack. And if he is hit by this attack, the Iron Overlord chest armor will be shattered immediately, and he in the cockpit will never survive. No, no, don't want. He watched the fist approach in despair, as if he was seeing his own death. Under his gaze with splitting eyes, the fist bursting with azure energy still came into contact with Iron Overlord, and then Iron Overlord was knocked away again. However, unlike last time, there was no black lightning burst this time, and the Iron Overlord was only knocked back a few meters before stopping. Obadiah immediately controlled the Iron Overlord to stand up and looked at the damage to the machine body. Alarm, alarm, the body's damage level is 38%. The body's damage level is 38%. The punch just caused only an additional 2% damage to the body. Obadiah immediately realized what he was talking about and burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, you can't just release the terrifying black lightning just now, right? Could it be that the initial attack has greatly consumed your physical strength, and you are no longer able to use it a second time? Quote. Knowing that the White Demon was not as powerful as he thought, the fear in Obadiah's heart disappeared instantly, and he continued to shoot at Sumu crazily. Come on, let me see how long you can hold out in this hail of bullets. On the side of the road, Tony Stark also walked over from the gap, and he also took in the whole scene. Not good, the black lightning attack can't be released continuously. In this way, as long as Obadiah keeps consuming the White Demon, he may really win. Tony immediately had a bad premonition. At this time, the energy of the Arc Reactor in his chest was only 2%, which could not support Mark III to continue fighting. If Obadiah won, he would have no reaction power at all and could only die in despair. The passers-by in the distance also saw the scene in front of them, and saw that the White Demon only knocked the Iron Giant away with one punch, and the Iron Giant seemed to be unharmed, and immediately stood up and shot wildly at the White Demon. They immediately made a guess. The White Devil's strength can still fight against humans, but it is no match for the power of technology. That's right, the Iron Giant must be the work of the military. The military attacked the White Devil, and he will be killed by the Iron Giant soon. In the crowd, a very small number of mutants who hid their identities saw this scene and couldn't help showing despair. Are mutants really no match for the government? Can mutants only suffer oppression and can't stand up? Everyone thought that the White Devil was about to lose, but then something unexpected happened. Sumu, who was watched by everyone, didn't care about other people's thoughts. He shook his palm, moved his fingers, and said with some regret. Sure enough, the skill level is too low to be able to release Black Flash 100%, and even the probability of successfully releasing Black Flash is extremely low. However, he had expected it, so Sumu didn't pay attention. He moved his eyes away from his palms and placed them on the Iron Overlord in front of him. He picked his ears and said casually, It's been so long, It's time to end the fight. What if Tony Stark isn't satisfied with my service? Then Su-mu stretched out his hand forward with a look of pleasure and cruelty. The technique is reversed to Kang, maximum power. Quote. Obadiah immediately sensed something was wrong when Su-mu reached out his hand, and fired all the weapons in his body in an instant. The explosions produced by these weapons can even destroy an entire street, but they are absorbed by a blue black hole without any reaction. The missiles that Obadiah had high hopes for were diffused so easily. No, that's impossible. Under Obadiah's disbelieving gaze, Su-mu grinned and pushed the azure black hole in front of him towards him. After the missile lost its effect, Obadiah immediately ran away toward the rear. The jet device all over his body was operating at full strength and he immediately arrived 10 meters away. Just when he was breathing a sigh of relief, he suddenly found that Iron Overlord had stopped. Even if he adjusted the power of the propulsion device to the highest level, it was still flying slowly behind him. And behind him is the terrifying azure black hole that seems to swallow everything. No, Obadiah forcibly overclocked the power of the jet device, pushing it beyond the limit. However, even if the propulsion device had exceeded the limit and even started to turn red and melt, it still could not stop him from moving towards the azure black hole, and even the speed of movement was getting faster and faster. Quick. Finally, under the complicated eyes of Tony Stark, the solemn gaze of Agent Coulson who also arrived, and the crowds of all other civilians, the Iron Overlord, who was arrogant one moment, was horrified by the next moment. Devoured by azure black hole. The 10-centimeter thick titanium alloy was completely unable to resist the terrifying gravity. First, the feet, then the chest and abdomen, and finally the head, twisted in turn, submerged into the azure black hole, and disappeared. And the creator of everything, the person they originally disliked, just yawned and walked out of the dust raised by the explosion. The white sweater he was wearing was not even stained by dust, but his hairstyle looked a little messy. The white-haired devil once again used his terrifying sense of oppression and absolute dominance to tell the world that he is the strongest. After dealing with Iron Overlord, Su-mu slowly walked towards Tony Stark, holding his palm slightly behind him. A strange luminous object emitting white light was attracted by gravity and flew into his hand. It was the energy of Iron Overlord. Source: Arc Reactor. When Su-mu held the reactor, he immediately felt the huge energy contained in it, and his 6 eyes for precise manipulation and energy absorption were at full capacity. After replenishing the energy in the body to the upper limit of energy storage, the remaining energy is absorbed by the system and then put into the Gojo Enlightenment template. Even after the template fusion is increased to 30%, the difficulty of further improvement also increases, and the fusion is still improving in an orderly manner, not much slower than before. According to the previous rules, when the fusion degree reaches 40%, he will obtain a new skill. He is looking forward to this very much. What exactly is the new skill? Could it be that the spell reverses its minimum power is twice as powerful as the maximum power of the spell reversal, Aang? When Su-mu came to Tony Stark's side, the system simultaneously sent a prompt. Template integration, 31%. At this time, Tony Stark was in a panic. The steel helmet had long been missing, and even a steel gauntlet had disappeared. The arc reactor kept flashing on his chest. Obviously the energy was on the verge of being exhausted. Seeing Su-mu approaching, Phil Coulson subconsciously took a step back. This is a subconscious reaction of humans facing powerful predators. What's more, Su-mu is more terrifying than a powerful predator. But Tony Stark showed no signs of fear. He came to Su-mu and looked at him curiously, his eyes full of curiosity. How did you just do that? Some kind of mysterious future technology? Is that strange defense some kind of space technology? Coulson on the side also looked curious, hoping to get more information about the white-haired demon. Hearing Tony Stark's question, Su-mu smiled and explained. This is my ability. After hearing Su-mu's answer, Tony Stark murmured to himself, are you a mutant? It's incredible. Su-mu was noncommittal. Except for energy absorption, all other abilities were given by the panel and had nothing to do with mutants. However, Su-mu did not deny that there are many abilities against mutants in the Marvel world. If someone wants to use this ability to deal with him in the future, then he will definitely give that person a surprise. Tony Stark suddenly felt a pain in his chest, and when he saw that the arc reactor on his chest had been completely exhausted, he immediately looked at the arc reactor in Suemu's hand and said, "Can you return the arc reactor to me? I need him to help me attract the scattered shrapnel in my chest." Suemu naturally didn't want his favorite hero in his previous life to die like this, so he threw the arc reactor in his hand to Tony Stark. "You owe me 2 arc reactors now." "What? This arc reactor was originally mine. But it belongs to me now." "Well, okay." Thinking that the man in front of him had saved him, it was nothing to give him 1 more arc reactor. It was definitely not that the white-haired demon was too strong. That's right, it was definitely not. Seeing this, Agent Colvin on the side silently wrote down the fact that the white-haired demon needed an arc reactor. This might be related to his ability. Then he took out his ID and said to Suemu, "Hello, sir. I am Agent Coulson of the Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency. I have some questions to discuss with you." Looking at the sparse hair of Agent Coulson in front of him, Coulson felt deeply offended and then retracted his gaze. "Well, it seems that your usual work is very tiring." "Oh, yes," Coulson answered subconsciously, and then immediately realized his main purpose, so he continued. "I wonder if you can join us and become an Avenger." Faced with Coulson's invitation, Suemu was not surprised. At this time, Nick Fury was preparing the Avengers alliance plan. Seeing his strength, it was normal to want to invite him. Suemu was about to refuse, and then thought of the space gem placed in the shield base and the mind gem that would be delivered to the account soon, and immediately smiled and said, "Of course, I am willing to." Looking at the unremarkable and frivolous smile of the white-haired man in front of him, Coulson didn't know why, and had a sense of foreboding. Sure enough, he heard Suemu continue. "However, my relationship with you is not a superior-subordinate relationship, but a cooperative relationship. You need to pay me a certain amount of remuneration, and I will help you perform tasks." Suemu reread the letter, reward, and made up her mind to go to S.H.I.E.L.D. to get the Space Stone when the energy absorption increased enough to carry the energy of the Infinity Stones. After all, it's payment, isn't it? Of course, it would be better if Loki happened to come to deliver the takeaway at that time. As for whether S.H.I.E.L.D. would be dissatisfied, Suemu had no such considerations at all and believed they would be happy to hand over the reward to him. They are not stupid. When Coulson heard Suemu's words, he was silent for a moment, then stretched out his hand to the transmitter next to his ear and said, "This is not something I can decide. I need to ask my superiors for instructions." Suemu nodded. Coulson immediately contacted Nick Fury, and after saying something, he said to Suemu, "If you are willing to join us completely, we can help you get rid of the military's wanted order." Suemu was stunned and immediately understood that this was a deal. He showed a bright smile, then approached Coulson and said slowly, "Agent Coulson, or Director Nico Fury, do you think I care about the so-called wanted person?" Coulson continued to communicate with Nick Fury, then took off the transmitter from his ear and turned the sound to the highest level. Then a deep voice came from the transmitter. "Mr. Suemu, I admit that you are very capable, even more powerful than Magneto and Professor X, but there are too many mutants under Colonel Stryker, and many of them can erase mutants' abilities. Presumably even if you encounter this situation, there is nothing you can do. How about joining us and we will help you negotiate with Colonel Stryker and erase your wanted status?" Quote. Nick Fury was sitting in the office, with a look of confidence on his face. He told Colonel Stryker's secret weapon against mutants, and Suemu would definitely not refuse. After all, no matter how powerful he is still a mutant, and mutants without mutant abilities are just ordinary people who can be killed by any bullet. However, after he waited for a moment, he suddenly heard a laugh from the transmitter, and the sound continued to grow louder until it became an undisguised sarcasm. "Ha ha 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 ha, Nikofri, do you really think I care about this? As I said just now, we are just equal partners. If you don't want to, forget it." Quote. After all, even if you take it by force, you can still get the infinite gems. Cooperating with S.H.I.E.L.D. is just more convenient. Nick Fury was silent. The development of the matter was beyond his expectation. He did not expect that Suemu really didn't mind the method that could erase the mutant ability. Could it be that he has a way to deal with this method? No, it's impossible. He doesn't even know the specifics of this method. How can he have a way to deal with it? Nick Fury immediately breathed a sigh of relief and prepared to rescue Su-mu when he was about to be captured by Colonel Stryker and then let him completely join S.H.I.E.L.D. Presumably by then, he will have thought it through. So he said directly, "Okay, I agree, now you and we have a cooperative relationship. If you regret it later, we will still welcome you to join, but the conditions may change at that time." Quote. Su-mu naturally understood what Nick Fury meant, and then grinned and said, "Don't worry, Director Nico, that day won't happen. What effect do mutant abilities have on him? Moreover, how can we just negotiate with Stryker and cancel the wanted order? He's going to kill Stryker." Afterwards, Agent Coulson said goodbye to Su-mu and Stark. His mission had been completed, and he had even won over the 5th-level mutant white-haired demon. There was no reason to stay here at this time. After Coulson left, Tony reunited with Pepper Potts and led Su-mu to the top floor of Stark Tower. He picked up 2 brand new arc reactors from the table and handed them to Su-mu. "This is your reward, white-haired boy." Su-mu looked at Stark, but she didn't expect that Stark would give him a nickname just after they met. But he didn't mind, instead he found it interesting. Before he traveled through time, Stark had already died. Although he planned to return, would Stark still be the same Iron Man after his return? This has also become his regret. Seeing the living Iron Man now, it feels like fantasy has come into reality. Su-mu randomly picked up a satchel from the table, placed an arc reactor in it, and then held another arc reactor with one hand to absorb energy at full power. When Tony Stark saw Su-mu pick up the satchel, obviously wanting to keep it for himself, he couldn't help but complain. "You're so rude," Su-mu responded. "After all, I saved your life, didn't I? Mr. Big Shit." "Big Shit, what the hell is this?" Tony Stark asked immediately, but with the flick of Su-mu's fingers, he felt his whole body being pulled backwards by a huge attraction, and then he found that he fell into Pepper's arms. There was already a chair in the office in the distance. Su-mu didn't have any consciousness of being a guest. She lay down and said to Tony Stark, "I just escaped death. What am I doing here if I don't kiss your girlfriend?" Tony Stark was speechless. He looked at Pepper, who was looking at him tenderly. In this crisis, they finally understood each other's feelings. The scene in front of him made Su-mu quite dissatisfied. He didn't want to eat dog food, so he used Kang to drive the two away and stayed alone on the top floor to absorb energy. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. As the template fusion degree continues to increase, the difficulty of continuing to increase the fusion degree also increases. When it increases to 35%, the energy points required to increase 1% continue to increase, but with the continuous supply of energy from the arc reactor, after more than 10 hours, the template fusion degree finally reached 39%. At this time, Su-mu suddenly took off the black eye mask in front of him and looked into the distance. After a moment, he grinned, took off the eye mask, and then threw it aside, and said to Jarvis, "Jarvis, tell Tony that I will be away for a while. When I come back, I will have something important to tell him. I guess he has also noticed that there is something wrong with his body." After saying that, he came to the French window without waiting for Jarvis to reply. With a slight force of 5 fingers, the extremely solid glass immediately shattered. Su-mu opened his arms, leaned forward, and naturally fell downwards. When he was close to the ground, he used Kang to absorb himself to the wall, and with a slight force, stepped on the wall to create many cracks, and then rushed towards a direction where the flames were rising into the sky. There happened to be a hard enough target there, which was very suitable for experimenting with the new skills that would be acquired next. In the laboratory of the seaside villa, Tony Stark saw through the camera that Su-mu easily shattered the special bulletproof glass and then jumped down, and couldn't help but curse in a low voice. "What a monster, you know, that is a special glass that can withstand RPG rocket launchers." He only used 5 fingers to easily shatter it, and didn't even use other abilities. But what is he doing outside at this time? "Jarvis, explore the direction he left to see if there is anything worth noting." Jarvis immediately hacked into a large number of surveillance cameras, and after a while, he projected part of the picture in front of Tony Stark. Seeing the picture in front of him, Tony Stark subconsciously cursed. What kind of monster is this? Is Sumu just going to find these monsters? Jarvis, assemble Mark IV, I can't miss this kind of thing. But sir, Mark IV has not been debugged yet. Jarvis was interrupted by Tony Stark before he finished speaking. No need to debug, there will be no problem with my design. New York, Northern Manhattan, Harlem. A terrifying green monster appeared at some point, rampaging through Harlem, killing all creatures in sight. This bustling urban area has now become a ruin. The dense shooting and screaming have turned this urban area into a hell on earth, filled with wailing and despair. The fully armed elite troops wandered around Harlem, shooting wildly at the terrifying monster, but neither guns nor missiles could hurt the monster at all. The elite troops were like civilians at this time, and had no power to resist the green monster. On the high-rise building nearby, Sumu sat on the edge, his legs hanging naturally, his chin resting on his hands, and watching the tragic drama in front of him with a smile. He was quietly waiting for the protagonist to appear. Boom! The sound of breaking air came from far away. Sumu did not look back, and the six eyes had already captured the figure of Tony Stark. Tony Stark looked at the hellish scene in front of him, his expression under the helmet was full of seriousness. What is this? Sumu responded lightly. Well, a weak mortal suddenly got the power he dreamed of, and then lost himself, and a crazy revenge drama. Then what are you doing here? Tony Stark knew that the young man in front of him had the power to stop all this, but he was unmoved, just like an audience, observing everything in front of him indifferently. I heard that there was already some anger in Tony Stark's tone, but Sumu was still unmoved, just changed to a more comfortable posture. Waiting for the protagonist to appear. But you, why are you here if you are not preparing for tomorrow's press conference? Tony Stark did not answer, but asked in a deep voice. Are you staying here and doing nothing, just watching that monster destroy and kill people everywhere? Otherwise, even if I don't stop it, it's not wrong, right? Tony Stark was silent. Sumu was right. He had no obligation to save others. So he stopped talking, drove the Mark IV towards the abomination, and used the energy cannon in his palm to shoot at him crazily, but it had no effect at all. Look here, green fat man, I want to give you a gift. Jarvis, charge 100%. A shining white light lit up in the center of the steel armor, and then a thick energy ray hit the abomination. Tony Stark breathed a sigh of relief. This should be able to deal with him. Suddenly, a huge building stone hit Tony Stark, and he was directly smashed out, and the chest of the steel armor was immediately severely deformed. However, the abomination, who was hit by the thick energy ray, did not suffer any damage. He glanced at the direction where Tony Stark was smashed and flew out, spitting to one side, and continued to shout loudly. Hulk, get out and face me. On the top of the tall building, Sumu attracted Tony, who was flying far away, to prevent him from being hurt again, and then teased. Tony, why are you flying back again? Tony Stark did not respond. He took off his helmet with difficulty and took a deep breath. Just now, he almost thought he saw the god of death. Only then did he understand why Sumu did not go to stop him. With such a terrifying power and such a terrifying defense, even the white-haired demon would be helpless. At this moment, a heavy sound of a heavy object falling to the ground came from a distance, and then Tony Stark saw Sumu stand up, stretched, and said, "The protagonist is here, so I, the villain, will also appear." After that, Sumu immediately jumped off the building and disappeared from Tony's sight. Tony was puzzled. Why did Sumu say that he was a villain? Isn't the villain that green monster? Banner jumped off the plane and smashed a deep pit in the ground. Then a huge green hand stretched out, and a green giant with green skin but a higher appearance came out. Hulk is online. Hulk tore a car in half and rushed towards the abomination as a weapon. The two fought fiercely, almost destroying the entire Harlem district. But because Banner had injected the inhibitor before, Hulk could not exert his full strength and gradually fell into a disadvantage. Just when the abomination was pressing the Hulk under him and beating him, he suddenly heard a gloating voice from the side. No, abomination, you should have hit the Hulk's eyes directly with that punch just now. Hulk, you have to attack the weak spot of the hatred, do you understand? Quote. The two men subconsciously stopped, and then saw a white-haired young man sitting on the only intact street lamp beside him, eating potato chips that he got from somewhere, and pointing fingers at them. Seeing that the two men in front of him stopped fighting, Su-mu said impatiently. What are you doing? Keep fighting, you haven't finished eating the potato chips yet. Quote. Abomination looked at the white-haired man in front of him and immediately recognized that this was the white-haired demon that appeared some time ago, a level 5 mutant. However, he had just gained tremendous power and did not take the so-called white-haired demon seriously at all. No matter how strong he was, could he be stronger than him? It is estimated that he can be defeated at will just like the Iron Man just now. Abomination picked up a huge stone and threw it hard at the white-haired demon on the street lamp. The huge force acted on the stone, and the terrifying speed formed a sonic boom, which directly hit the white-haired demon. He turned his head directly, without looking at the result of the attack, and wanted to hit Hulk again. But at this moment, he suddenly heard a sigh from behind him. Hey, bad boy, how can you hit the referee for no reason? You said so, Abomination. Quote. Then, Hate felt a terrifying force coming from his back, and black and red lightning filled all the space around him. He was blown away uncontrollably, breaking through layers of solid walls, and finally on the concrete floor. After finally stopping, he immediately felt a warm liquid flowing down his back. When he wiped it back, the skin behind him, which was harder than titanium alloy, was broken, and a lot of green blood continued to flow from a fist mark. Since he gained power, he was injured for the first time. In the distance, through the channel he knocked out, a pair of eyes emitting azure spiritual light looked at him, looking down at him, as if looking at an ant. At the same time, Su-mu in the distance heard the system's prompt. Energy point +1. Template fusion degree. 40%. You have unlocked a new skill. Spell reversal, he. Just in time. Su-mu's mouth curled up with a familiar smile again. Spell reversal. He, 1/100th, a repulsive force is generated with he as the center. The minimum power is twice that of Kang, and the maximum output is positive infinity, similar to a small supernova. A large amount of information about the reversal of the H technique flooded out of his mind, and Su-mu instantly mastered the method of using the H reversal technique. At this time, he could perfectly perform the spell to reverse H without incurring a lot of unnecessary consumption like the last time. And no more risk of being killed by your own powers. Thinking of this, the smile on Su-mu's face became even more joyful. He looked at the hatred that stood up from the spot and rushed towards him, but he did not immediately use the magic to reverse H. After all, the purpose of his coming was not only to experiment with the magic reversal H, but also to practice Black Flash and enhance the success rate of Black Flash. Su-mu directly released the unlimited spell, and used all his strength to absorb energy and manipulate magic power to strengthen his body. Then, facing the hatred that rushed towards him, all his muscles worked together. Boom! The familiar black lightning burst out again, and the hatred that rushed towards Su-mu flew backwards at a faster speed. Su-mu looked at his right hand. Even with energy absorption and mantra manipulation to double strengthen his body, his physical quality at this time was still lower than Abomination. If he hadn't used the Black Flash this time, he might have been knocked away. Reversal spell experience +1. When the reversal technique is activated, the slightly broken bones and scratches on the right hand are restored at a speed visible to the naked eye. It seems that the recovery speed is faster than that of Abomination. On the top floor of the high-rise building, Tony Stark looked at the scene in front of him, watching the white-haired demon completely crushing the green-skinned monster, and swallowed again. Fake. Who is the monster? However, his expression suddenly changed and he shouted to Su-mu. Careful. At the same time, Su-mu heard a harsh sound breaking through the air, and then felt that he was enveloped by a huge shadow. A huge fist hit Su-mu's head. When Hulk was about to take action, Su-mu used his 6 eyes to notice it. However, he did not panic or even pay attention. Instead, he rubbed his chin with his fingers and thought quietly. After using Black Flash, it will enter a special state that allows the user to exert 120% of their strength. So is this the zone state? Quote, after using the Black Flash last time, Su-mu noticed that the effect of using the Black Flash twice in a row this time was even more profound. All the cells in the body are beating, and the mind is concentrated like never before. You can detect details that you couldn't detect in the past. Boom! Hulk's fist broke through the sound barrier, forming a sonic boom visible to the naked eye, and struck Su-Emu's head. However, even with such a terrifying punch, after approaching a distance of 10 centimeters around Su-Emu, he could no longer move forward. Hulk then swung his fist out of the afterimage and attacked Su-Emu continuously, but it still had no effect. Even if you just look at the surface, Hulk's power completely crushes Su-Emu, but for some reason, everyone watching the battle feels that Hulk is just a child, acting coquettishly towards Su-Emu, who is an adult. No matter how much he cries, he is still vulnerable to Su-Emu as an adult. If the Hulk's attack had no effect, it wasn't. The dust raised by the sonic boom attracted Su-Emu's attention. Only then did he come back from his thoughts and look at the Hulk behind him who kept attacking him. With a look of extreme joy on his face, he took a step forward. Hulk was immediately bounced away and kept retreating, and his continuous offensive was interrupted. As soon as Hulk stabilized his body, azure eyes appeared in front of him and looked at him. Then, a hand that was extremely small for him was printed on his forehead, and along with the terrifying black lightning, he was deeply touched. Pressed deeply into the cement floor. After temporarily suppressing the Hulk, the smile on Su-Emu's face became even wider, and then he quickly kicked back. The terrifying black lightning erupted again. The abominable body crushed a tank and a wall before finally stopping. Without looking back, ignoring the hatred of being kicked away again, Su-Emu continued to hit Hulk, who was trying to get up. Boom, boom, boom. The black lightning contains huge power. Each attack can make the ground sink several meters. By the time 3 punches pass, a deep pit with a diameter of tens of meters has been formed around it. 3 consecutive black flash blows hit Hulk. At this time, Hulk's head was bleeding and his consciousness was blurred. If Su-Emu punched him again, he could directly suppress him and release Banner. But when the 4th punch fell, the terrifying black lightning had not yet appeared. This time it was an ordinary punch. Hulk originally used his arms to block Su-Emu's crazy attack, but he felt a little aggrieved at this time. In the previous confrontations of strength, he always won with an absolute advantage. Even when faced with the big guy who was also green just now, he was not without the slightest resistance. But who is the person who appears at this time? He looks very weak, and why does he have such amazing power? Originally, the poor Hulk baby was ready to go back and let Banner face the terrifying white-haired demon in front of him, but suddenly he found that the fist that was terrifying just now fell on him, but it did not cause any harm. Hulk reacted immediately, jumped out of the pit, and roared loudly at the white-haired demon in front of him again. Judging by intuition, the white-haired demon in front of him can no longer easily use the terrifying black lightning just now, and the Hulk's turn is coming. Hulk is full of confidence. And behind Su-Emu, Abomination also arrived, and he saw the whole scene. The white-haired demon's black attack just now could not be used continuously. In the news just released by the Global Times, the white-haired demon could only use black lightning once at that time. This time, it was beyond his expectation that he could use it 7 times in a row. But even if it was the white-haired demon, using black lightning 7 times in a row should be close to exhaustion. As long as he and Hulk continued to attack the white-haired demon together, they would definitely be able to penetrate the space defense and kill the white-haired demon. The next moment, Abomination and Hulk punched Su-Emu at the same time. When facing the white-haired demon, the 2 original enemies were shocked by the unparalleled sense of oppression and even joined forces for a short time. Tony Stark, who saw this scene, immediately ordered Jarvis to speed up and transfer all the steel armors over, ready to rescue Su-Emu at any time. Tony Stark believed that even if Su-Emu was extremely powerful, he was still no match for the joint attack of 2 monsters. In the distance, Nick Fury, who was watching the battle via satellite, also had a serious expression on his face. He also did not think highly of Su-Emu. The terrifying black lightning just now represented an astonishing consumption. Using it 7 times in a row would definitely consume a lot of Su-Emu's energy. Hulk and Abomination both had extremely strong recovery abilities and almost endless physical strength. The damage Su-Emu had caused to them before was also healing rapidly. In this way, as long as they continued to attack Su-Emu and consume his physical strength, they would eventually be able to break Su-Emu's defense. How can Su-Emu be saved? Nick Fury did not want to lose an important member of the future Avengers. But he desperately discovered that he had no means to save Su-Emu in this situation. Could it be that the white-haired devil was really going to perish? But the one who was most worried about the death of the white-haired demon was not Tony Stark or Nick Fury, but Eddie Brock, who was hiding in another tall building and using a camera to shoot downwards. He saw the white-haired demon in crisis. If his strength did not allow it, he would even want to jump down and save the white-haired demon. How could the white-haired demon fall like this? All of Eddie Brock's current achievements are based on the white-haired demon. If the white-haired demon falls from the altar and falls like this, then his reports will also lose their corresponding value, and promotion and salary increase may no longer exist, and even his current status will be lost. No, white-haired demon, come on, you are the strongest. So the future Venom, Mr. Eddie Brock, became the #1 fan of the white-haired demon. In the center of the battlefield, Hulk and Abomination punched Su-Mu at the same time. The aftermath of the continuous punching alone broke the cement floor of a large area around. But in the center of the battle, Su-Mu, who was worried by everyone, did not feel the slightest bit of tension. He rubbed his chin with his fingers again and looked up at the sky. 7 consecutive black flashes should also break the record of consecutive black flashes in the Jujutsu Kaisen world. Then he stretched his body and looked to both sides. Looking at the 2 hideous green skins, he smiled brightly. It's time to end. Hearing Su-Mu's words, the hatred laughed loudly. Yes, it's time to end. When I break your shell, I will definitely break all your bones one by one. Really? Su-Mu smiled kindly at the hatred, that's good. Then the hatred saw the white-haired demon in front of him stretched out his index finger and stretched it towards him. He immediately had a bad premonition, and the content of the first report slowly emerged in his mind. When he thought of the terrifying black and red singularity attack, the hatred immediately wanted to escape and avoid this attack. Judging from previous reports, this black and red singularity needs to be charged and stabilized for a period of time before it can be successfully released. In this way, with his speed, he can definitely avoid the terrifying singularity attack. However, under his extremely horrified gaze, the terrifying black-red singularity formed in the blink of an eye, quietly staying at the fingertips of the white-haired demon ready to go. Why is it so fast? He was extremely angry and puzzled. The mantra in the body was transformed into positive mantra after the reversal of the spell, and then circulated regularly in the body, and finally gathered at the fingertips to form a black-red singularity. After the template fusion degree reached 40% and the spell reversal, was obtained, the black-red singularity that was previously extremely difficult to use was now easy to use. The smile on Su-Mu's face gradually became cold, and then he said lightly. Spell reversal, The black-red singularity exploded and infinitely repelled the outside world. At this time, the spell reversal, had no extra energy consumption, and all of it was integrated into the repulsive force that could be infinitely improved. Boom! The abomination tried his best to dodge, but still could not escape the lock of the 6 eyes. The terrifying black-red singularity fell on his chest. Facing the black-red singularity comparable to a small supernova, he had no power to resist and flew straight back. Wherever the abomination passed, it was like a hurricane passing through, destroying all the intercepting objects with a devastating force, turning everything into dust. In the distance, a Mark armor just flew over and was in the middle of the abomination's flight. When the two collided, the armor made of titanium alloy immediately fell apart and split apart in the blink of an eye. Until the end, it fell on a wall again. The abomination's extremely hard body could no longer support it, and was broken out of the chest by the terrifying black and red singularity, and green blood was madly spilled. The black and red singularity that broke through the abomination's hard body still carried amazing power, constantly destroying everything in front of it, until it left a huge gully several kilometers long, leaving a deep scar for the prosperous New York. Hulk looked at everything in front of him dully, looking at the powerful enemy who fell to the ground several kilometers away, groaning constantly, and was almost dying. The opponent who just suppressed him, just lost like this. Then Hulk saw the terrifying white-haired demon, turned around and smiled at him, and stretched out his slender, seemingly harmless index finger towards him, just like he had just stretched it towards Abomination. No, Hulk tasted the fear of being dominated for the first time. He roared in despair, and then his body immediately shrank, the green color of his skin gradually faded, and finally turned into a middle-aged man in a coma. Su-Mu looked at this scene and snorted. Boring. Then he took out the high-tech mobile phone that Tony helped him buy, walked towards the abomination in the distance, and called Nick Fury. "Nico Fury, do you want to collect mutant monsters? Well, they are quite strong, and should be worth studying." Through satellite monitoring, Nick Fury saw the entire battle. He saw that the abomination, who was unscathed in the face of gunfire and artillery rain, and the fully armed modern troops, was defeated by the white-haired demon with one blow, and was almost dying. Seeing the Hulk, who made the military helpless, was scared back by the white-haired demon's brilliant smile. "I saw the white-haired demon who was nonchalant about what he had just done. Is this a level 5 mutant? Or is it just a white-haired demon?" He subconsciously took the call, and then heard Su Mu's words. After Su Mu repeated it several times, until he was slightly impatient, he came back to his senses from the shock and immediately said, Take it, how much do you want?" $100 million each, I think they are worth this money. Deal. On the high-rise building, Tony Stark stared at the Mark armor that was destroyed by the abomination, dumbfounded. As the support of Iron Man, he invested too much effort in the Mark armor, but it was destroyed so easily. Is the gap between him and Su Mu really that big? He looked towards the center of the battle area, and saw that in the middle of the huge gully several kilometers long, the young man was dragging the body of the monster that made him helpless, walking leisurely, and in the direction he was walking, another equally terrifying huge monster had degenerated into the appearance of a middle-aged human man and fell into a deep sleep. And the white-haired young man seemed to notice his gaze, looked at him through the long distance, and smiled brightly. On top of another tall building, about 2,000 meters away from Su Mu, Eddie Brock used his newly purchased camera to completely capture the scene that just happened. Thinking of the white-haired demon who just defeated two terrifying green monsters with a crushing attitude, he was extremely excited. This is the attitude that the white-haired demon should have. Sure enough, the white-haired demon is the most powerful. At the same time, Su Mu, who has maintained the unlimited technique for a long time, heard the prompt from the system. Unlimited technique experience +1. Congratulations, unlimited technique upgrade. No lower limit spell LV2 1/300th interfering with atomic level matter, dominating space. Objects that are closer to the user will become slower and slower, and will never be able to touch the user. A large amount of information continued to pour into his mind, and Su Mu's proficiency in unlimited spells increased rapidly. If the maximum range of the original no lower limit spell is about 5 centimeters from the body surface, the LV2 no lower limit spell doubles this distance. At this time, the maximum range of action is 10 centimeters from the body surface. Moreover, because the unlimited technique is the foundation of the technique reverse, Kang, and the technique reverse, Haku, the power of these two techniques has also been strengthened to a certain extent. Not only is the release speed faster, but the power is also fully improved. If you use the technique to reverse the He attack at this time, it will definitely pierce his chest and abdomen directly, instead of knocking him thousands of meters away before piercing his chest and abdomen. After negotiating the price of Abomination and Hulk with Nick Fury, Su Mu waited there. During the half hour he waited, all armed members did not dare to approach and only dared to monitor from a distance, even General Ross, who was fearless. From the process of capturing Hulk, he has understood the gap between himself and Hulk. At this time, facing Su Mu, who was even more powerful than Hulk, even if he had no brains, he would not waste his troops in vain. The mutants hiding around were extremely excited and stared at the white-haired figure in the center of the ruins of the battlefield. That was their god. The god of mutants. For how long, mutants have been oppressed and subjected to various horrific experiments in secret. Now they finally stand up. Just standing there, hundreds of heavily armed troops did not dare to move forward at all, and they did not even dare to launch missiles. Because they know that these attacks are completely ineffective and can only anger the White Devil and kill them all. Shield's speed was very fast, and not long after, a Quinjet flew in from a distance. The leader of several agents was an old acquaintance, Agent Coulson. Behind him stood a man holding a bow and arrow. Judging from his appearance, he should be Eagle Eye. At this time, Eagle Eye looked curiously at the white-haired man in front of him, then looked around, and finally stopped at a huge ravine that was thousands of meters long. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would never have imagined that the seemingly thin white-haired man in front of him actually contained such terrifying and huge energy. Su-Mu ignored Hawkeye and said directly to Coulson. That's Hulk and Abomination over there. Take over. Remember to use adamantium or vibranium to imprison them, otherwise it will be almost impossible to imprison them. Colvin couldn't help but smile bitterly as he watched Su-Mu talk eloquently, as if he was selling Hulk and Abomination as two ordinary commodities. The White Devil is so scary. His appearance has undoubtedly destroyed the balance between mutants and ordinary humans. If we only think from the inside of the Earth, then he and the Nick Bureau will definitely not want an overly powerful mutant like Su-Mu to exist. But if we judge from the entire universe, then Su-Mu's existence is essential. After all, they know that there are more glorious civilizations in the universe, and the Earth is just a remote corner of the universe and may be destroyed at any time. After Su-Mu finished speaking, he said to Coulson, "Agent Coulson, remember to deposit 200 million into my account, and I'll leave first." Then, without waiting for Coulson to answer, the azure spell covered Su-Mu's body, and with a sudden force on his feet, he jumped to a tall building nearby, and then used his strength on the wall of the tall building to disappear in an instant. Su-Mu is not worried that S.H.I.E.L.D. will default on the money he owes him. These agents are smart people, and Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., is even smarter. They will not make such a stupid choice. Seeing Su-Mu go away, Coulson pressed the headset in his ear and reported his work to Nick Fury. After a moment, he looked at Hawkeye beside him. "Agent Patton, what do you think of him?" Hawkeye was still staring at the direction Su-Mu left. The wall where Su-Mu relied on strength was full of dense and ferocious cracks. Hearing Coulson's question, he was silent for a moment, and then said, "It's hard to imagine that this is a power that humans can have. His power is so terrifying that it makes me feel unreal. I don't understand what the effect of my decades of hard training is. If I fought against him, I would probably be killed instantly, without the ability to resist at all. My attack method mainly relies on special arrows, and the speed of the White Devil is even beyond my eyesight, and it is extremely difficult for the arrows to hit him. Even if it can hit, the terrifying defense." Hawkeye paused here, but Coulson understood what Agent Barton wanted to say. That terrifying defense has no solution at all. Only attacks from space can break through. With today's technology, apart from mutants who also have mutant abilities, how can they launch space attacks? Coulson patted Agent Patton on the shoulder and comforted. "Agent Patton, you are already very strong. After all, there is only one White Devil in the world." Yes, there is only one White Devil. Arriving at the top of the high-rise building, Tony was already waiting here. When he saw Su-Mu return, he curiously circled Su-Mu several times, and lasers shot out from his steel eyes to scan him continuously. "How did you do it, face those two monsters, and still win easily? Are you really human?" Quote, Tony Stark finally couldn't help but ask this question. Su-Mu smiled and said to Tony Stark, "Tony, the world is big and exciting. Even if I am not the strongest now, there are many people on Earth who are stronger than me. Dark Phoenix, Supreme Sorcerer, etc., you need to have a long-term vision." "Really?" Tony Stark questioned, but when he saw the smile on Su-Mu's face, his expression gradually became serious. He finally realized that this world is not as simple as he imagined. Even Su-Mu is not the strongest, so what kind of power do other strong people have? Dark Phoenix, Supreme Sorcerer. What are the identities of these strong people, and how powerful are they? Wait, mage, are you saying that there are mages on Earth, the kind of extraordinary people who can cast spells? Of course. Tony Stark was shocked again, and then thought of what Su-Mu had just said. "You said that you are not their opponent now, so will you win in the future?" Yes, same words as Gojo Satoru, same confidence as Gojo Satoru, but Su-Mu with the system is destined to have a different ending from Gojo Satoru. He, Su-Mu, don't want to be cut in half. At the same time, Coulson, who was transporting Dr. Banner and Hate back to the space carrier, heard a new order from Nick Fury through the headset. A strange crater appeared in New Mexico, and a hammer was placed in the center of the crater. It can't be picked up anyway. Agent Coulson, you are responsible for exploring the hammer. After this mission, you will definitely be given a vacation. Corvin stroked his increasingly sparse hair, hung up the call, and sighed. Hey, Director Nick, you have said this many times. Two major events have happened recently. The first major event is that the Iron Armor incident has been unveiled some time ago. The truth follows Tony Stark's words, I am Iron Man. I'm Iron Man. And that's the end. From then on, the world entered the superhero era. This is an epic-making event, but another event is no less important than this one, and is even slightly more important. This big event is still about the white-haired demon, that terrifying level 5 mutant. Reporter Eddie Brock, a suddenly rising star in journalism, wrote this in his latest report. An unprecedented terrorist attack occurred in Harlem some time ago. Two terrifying green-skinned monsters wreaked havoc in Harlem, ignoring the attacks of heavily armed troops and killing civilians crazily. At this critical moment, the white-haired demon stood up and easily defeated two terrifying green-skinned monsters using the terrifying black-red singularity. But the white-haired devil is not a kind person, he deserves the title of devil. The black-red singularity attack he released instantly defeated a green-skinned monster, destroyed a large number of buildings, killed hundreds of civilians, destroyed the ground in the aftermath of the attack, and finally formed a huge ravine thousands of meters long. He is far more harmful than the two green-skinned monsters combined. Moreover, according to the analysis of the video footage I took before, the strength of the white-haired devil is steadily and rapidly improving. When he used the black-red singularity for the first time, it was obvious that the black-red singularity was not stable, and according to subsequent analysis by experts, he was probably severely exhausted at that time, and then he let go of the army that surrounded him. But now he releases the black-red singularity again, and the release speed is significantly improved. The black-red singularity is also obviously more stable than before, and the attack power is far more powerful than the first time. As you know, level 5 mutants are mutants with unlimited potential, and the existence of the white-haired demon shows us the terrifying potential of level 5 mutants. I can't help but boldly guess that the white-haired devil's strength at this time is still far from reaching his limit. As time goes by, he will become stronger and stronger, and in the end he will even be able to ignore nuclear bombs. I again ask the military and the government, how are you going to deal with the white-haired devil? Taxpayers' money cannot support incompetent waste. Please ask the military and government to come up with a reasonable response plan. In the hidden base, Magneto put down the newspaper in his hand, with a heartfelt smile on his face. Mystique on the side saw this and was very curious about it. Ever since he formulated the plan to destroy mankind and suffered repeated setbacks in subsequent actions, Eric hadn't smiled from the bottom of his heart for who knows how long. So she looked at the newspaper on the table, and she must have found the reason. After roughly reading the newspaper, she could not control the look of shock on her face. Even though he is a 5th-level mutant, the white-haired demon is growing too fast. Magneto on the side saw the shock on Mystique's face, straightened the psychic helmet on his head, smiled and said to Mystique, Ruiwin, it seems that without our guidance, the new power is still moving forward on the right path, and our power is getting stronger. At the same time, in a hidden laboratory at Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, Professor X put down the newspaper and raised his eyebrows gently. After a while, he said to the Phoenix girl beside him, Chin, we have to try to contact him. He is gradually falling into darkness. If he is ignored, his power will definitely cause irreparable damage. Chin nodded in agreement, but what Professor X didn't see was that there was a touch of red in her eyes that could not go away for a long time. In a mansion in Los Angeles, the two protagonists who have attracted the attention of the world are sitting on the balcony and sunbathing. Each of them is served by a beautiful woman. If any fans come here, they will definitely see that these two beauties are two of the most popular Hollywood actresses recently. But the two usual protagonists were reduced to supporting roles at this time, without even a single line. By the way, Sue Mew, before you go to Harlem, don't you have something important to tell me? So what is this thing about? Quote, Tony Stark suddenly asked Sue Mew. Sue Mew was wearing big flower pants, drinking expensive red wine, and enjoying the service of the blonde. When he heard Tony Stark's question, he remembered, then stretched and said, Is there something wrong with your health now? Tony Stark's expression froze, and he immediately forced a smile and said, No way, my health is fine. Sue Mew smiled mysteriously and said to Tony Stark without refuting, As long as you provide an unlimited supply of Arc Reactor when I need it. I will solve your body problems. Quote, Tony Stark was stunned. Is it that simple? Seeing Su-mu nod, he immediately said, okay, I agree. Su-mu swallowed the cherry placed by the blonde's mouth and moaned softly. Your current dilemma is probably palladium metal poisoning, so you keep drinking chlorophyll to relieve the symptoms of poisoning. If you continue to use the arc reactor made of palladium metal, you will definitely die in the near future. Quote, the two slim blondes subconsciously stopped serving and looked at Tony Stark in shock. The world's richest man, the playboy Tony Stark, was about to die. Seeing Tony subconsciously put the chlorophyll in his hand on the table and covering his chest to hide it, Su-mu immediately laughed and said, don't be nervous, the new elements are hidden in your home, in the architectural sandbox your father left for you. Search carefully and you will definitely find it with your wisdom. Goodbye, next time we meet, I will give you another piece of news while picking up the arc reactor. Of course, it's also important. Quote, then, under the shocked gazes of Tony Stark and the two blondes, Su-mu disappeared from the spot in the blink of an eye, without a trace. Tony was stunned for a moment, then smiled helplessly and said, this guy has become stronger again. At the same time, a burst of footsteps came from outside the door. Under Tony Stark's displeased gaze, Nick Fury walked in, with several agents in black behind him carrying a silver box. A moment later, under the shocked gaze of Nick Fury, Tony Stark lay on the sun lounger and sneered. Are you talking about a new element? I've found it. High in the distance, Su-mu stood out of thin air, with blood oozing from the corners of his mouth. The injuries in his body recovered quickly under the action of the reversal technique. He said helplessly, even with the LV3 spell reversal, Kang, can't I use teleport continuously? Even with level 3 energy absorption, you will still be injured if you continue to withstand the pressure caused by teleportation. It seems that we have to wait until the magic reversal, Kang, is raised to LV4, or the energy absorption is raised to LV4, before we can use the magic reversal, Blue, to teleport infinitely. Quote, just yesterday, by minimizing energy output and constantly practicing the technique of reversing, Kang, the technique of reversing, Kang, was finally raised to LV3. Congratulations, the spell reversal, Kang, has been upgraded. Spell reversal, Kang, LV3 1/1000th create powerful suction, change the distance between multiple objects to negative infinity, and create a small black hole. At the moment of upgrading, Su-mu's mind came up with the advanced method of using the spell, Kang. Through strong gravity, the distance between the starting point and the end point is compressed, achieving an effect similar to teleportation. So, just now, he took one step and was dozens of kilometers away in an instant. After the injuries in his body were completely healed, Su-mu flew towards New York. For him at this moment, this distance was nothing. 2 arc reactors floated around Su-mu under the effect of the unlimited spell. The huge energy released from them constantly helped him replenish his energy. There was even enough energy for the system to absorb and improve the template fusion degree. His main purpose of going to New York at this time was to kill Kingpin, the underground king who had caused him a lot of trouble at the beginning of his journey. The main reason for not looking for Kingpin at first was that he could not confirm his actions. Now that Six Eyes is about to be upgraded to level 3, and he has obtained teleportation and his mobility is extremely fast, he can explore the entire Hell's Kitchen in a short time. Kingpin has nowhere to hide in front of him. On the way to New York, Su-mu kept urging Six Eyes with all his strength to observe the surrounding scenery, and Six Eyes' experience value was constantly increasing. Six Eyes experience +1. Six Eyes experience +1. Six Eyes experience +1. After arriving above New York, accompanied by the continuous prompts of the system, Six Eyes was upgraded to level 3. Six Eyes experience +1. Congratulations, your Six Eyes skill has been upgraded. Six Eyes LV3 1/1000th with a 360-degree long-distance perspective, you can see the flow of energy. The amazing dynamic vision allows the holder to perform delicate energy operations, maximize the energy, and reduce unnecessary energy loss. A warm current flows out of the mind and then pours into the eyes. The already amazing visual range is rapidly improved, from the initial 500 meters to 2000 meters, which is 4 times higher than when it was LV2. Within a range of 2000 meters, everything is clearly visible. Even the perspective ability is greatly enhanced, and you can pass through several hard walls and see the specific scenery behind them. In addition, after upgrading to LV3, the 6 Eyes has a new effect, reducing unnecessary energy consumption. In this way, Su-Mu's already long-lasting fighting time has been greatly improved again. After consuming all the information in his mind, Su-Mu grinned, took another step, and came to the sky above Hell's Kitchen. The game of hide-and-seek is about to begin. In a hidden military base, the satellite radar suddenly sounded an alarm. In the office of the Supreme Commander, a well-trained soldier reported in a panic. Report to the General, the satellite radar detected an unknown flying object flying towards New York at a high speed, with a maximum speed of Mach 5. What? The General was shocked. You know, the current maximum speed of a flying fighter is only about Mach 3. How could the speed of this unknown flying object reach Mach 5? Call up the satellite monitoring and lock the unknown flying object. I want to see what it is. As Tony Stark announced that he was Iron Man, more and more strange events have occurred recently, and all kinds of strange masked people are everywhere. Even if an unknown flying object with a speed of Mach 5 appears, the General will be too surprised. The soldier immediately controlled the satellite, focused the camera, and aimed it at the unknown flying object over Hell's Kitchen. When the scene on the screen was completely clear, they stared at everything in front of them in a daze. Even the General, who had encountered countless emergencies in his life, was stunned by the scene in front of him. A white-haired figure stood above Hell's Kitchen, his hands in his pockets, looking down at everything in front of him. This figure was very familiar to everyone present, because since the 3 reports were published, the military and the government have been under great pressure. In the past few days, all senior military officials have been studying the intelligence about the White Devil, trying to find his weaknesses. However, after several days of sleepless research, all senior military officials desperately discovered that the White Devil had no weaknesses at all. Extraordinary physique, energy absorption, azure black holes, black and red singularities, terrifying space defense. This is an absolutely perfect mutant. In the end, many senior officials who worked hard to study finally found that the White Devil seemed to have no ability to resist mental attacks, and immediately sent messengers to negotiate with Professor X, trying to use the students in Xavier's school for gifted youth to force him to kill Su-Mu. However, they later heard Professor X say, "The consciousness of the White Demon is like a chaos. I can't detect it at all, so naturally I can't attack it." Everyone didn't believe it until another mutant with psychic abilities who had defected to the military and had contacted the White Demon said the same thing. Only then did they completely believe that even Professor X couldn't do anything to the consciousness of the White Demon. This fact made the entire military at a loss. If even mental attacks can be perfectly resisted, then the White Demon has no weaknesses. How can there be such a perfect mutant? Because of this incident, the senior military officials held an emergency meeting the day before yesterday. In the meeting, Colonel Stryker emphasized the danger of the White Demon and talked about his growing ability and the possibility of ignoring nuclear bombs in the future. If it really comes to that time, facing the White Demon like a god, the government and the military will no longer have any power to resist, and the White Demon will establish a new government. It is precisely because of this sentence that the military and government officials are determined to use large-yield nuclear weapons to kill the White Demon and strangle the crisis in the cradle. But what is the situation now? Why did the speed of the White Devil suddenly increase so much? Now it is close to the maximum speed of Mach 5, which is faster than the fastest fighter jet. How could it be hit by a nuclear weapon? What should we do now? Isn't the careful layout of the military leaders a joke? At this moment, they suddenly saw that the White Devil in the picture suddenly looked up, as if he saw the surveillance satellite in outer space through a distance of tens of thousands of meters, and smiled grimly. They subconsciously stepped back several steps, and the general almost stumbled, because the White Devil in front of them seemed to be looking at them through the camera, and his appearance was right in front of them. The next moment, the White Devil ignored them, took another step, and disappeared from the spot. The general's forehead was covered with countless cold sweat, and he kept muttering to himself. No, the plan cannot be terminated. We must invest a larger nuclear bomb and launch a devastating attack on the White Devil, even if it destroys a city. In just a few days, the White Devil has become so terrifying. How far can it grow? Is it really necessary to make him a god on Earth? Above Hell's Kitchen, Su-mu looked up at the sky. He felt that he was being spied on. This was the instinctive intuition given to him by the 6 eyes that were promoted to level 3. But Su-mu didn't care. It should be that the military discovered his whereabouts and used surveillance satellites to monitor him. He smiled kindly at the direction of the peeping that he intuitively sensed, and then took a step forward and disappeared from the spot. Jin Bing is still waiting for him. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.